Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a medieval kitchen, so chilly your toes will freeze faster than a TikTok trend. That hearth crackles at your back, smoke stinging your eyes like passive-aggressive incense. Don't worry about plague rats or moldy breadcrumbs. This is the cozy apocalypse. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your coordinates and current moon phase. I'll pretend to check them all. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch by the fire pit, its stones still warm from last night's watch. Embers glow like drunk fireflies trapped under ash. Your palms graze the iron pot, dented from that time. Harold accidentally dropped it during a lute solo. Historians love arguing whether medieval hearths were family hubs or just places to thaw frozen boots. That pot's weight feels like an anchor, if anchors were forged from Grandpa's questionable stew recipes. Wood smoke clings to your sleeves, medieval febres with extra long grit. Did you know peasants buried embers in dung overnight to keep fires alive? True story, 16th century arsonist Arab. Your knife scrapes burnt gunk off the pot rim, the sound of nails on a chalkboard church bell. 7 logs lean against the wall, each cut from trees planted before Columbus got lost. Breath ghosts into the air. You're basically a human smokestack now. That crescent moon peeks through the smoke hole. Cranky neighbors included it free with the rent. Experts think open hearth cooking released enough toxins to explain every weird village superstition. You squint at the broth's surface. Scum swirls like conspiracy theories in a tavern. Flames lick the pot's belly their dance, impersonating a Tinder date gone right. Your thumb finds the ladle's chip, a relic from the Great Porridge Riot of 1493. Ever heard of fire insurance paid in turnips? Yeah, neither did the guy whose thatch roof became a marshmallow. The broth burps. A glob lands on your boot like edible napalm. Fat sizzles on the hearthstone, someone's dinner 6 hours ago. Wind howls through chinks in the wall, nature's off-key backup singers. You toss in a fistful of salt, 12 grains hit your cheek like icy hail. That dented pot's seen more drama than Shakespeare's understudy. Knees crack as you stand, proof of authentic medieval core workouts. Smoke coils toward the ceiling, a drunkard's interpretation of the Milky Way. Historians still argue whether hearths doubled as confessionals for repentant sausage thieves. Your pinky dips into the broth. Degree burns, never tasted so communal. Rot reaches your nose, could be time, could be foot fungus. Emberlight flickers across the soot-stained crucifix. Ornamentation meets desperation. You blow on the spoon, a futile ritual older than papal indulgences. The hearth's heat warms your shins. Welcome back. Leg hair. That pot handle's rust might explain the recurring fever dreams. Listen, is that wind or a ghost demanding seconds? Turns out history's just people huddled around fires, burning things, cursing drafts, and wondering who ate the last turnip. Sound familiar? The knife's edge bites into the first parsnip, pale flesh parting like dry parchment. You're no stranger to winter roots. Their stubborn gnarls outlast empires. A curl of wood smoke stings your eyes, or maybe it's the ghost of last year's harvest laughing at your clumsy grip. Parsnips were medieval Europe's candy, boiled down into syrups when honey ran scarce. Yours won't sweeten anything today. Each chop releases earthy musk, wet soil, and forgotten root cellars. You carve away knobs that resemble arthritic fingers, toss them into the waiting broth. 7 chunks plunk below the surface, each bubble a tiny protest against their fate. Your blade hits a knot, wooden handle vibrating like a plucked lute string. Historians still argue whether winter roots caused more toothaches than mead. You're inclined to agree. The parsnip's core fractures into splintered shards. One scrap flies sideways, lands near the hearthstone with accusatory finality. An odd thought surfaces. Roman soldiers carried parsnip seeds as campaign rations, practical if you ignore the bloating. You picture centurions farting their way across Gaul, their leather armor creaking in protest. The broth burbles, a wet echo of your smirk. Carrots come next, stubby things salvaged from the frost line. You peel them with brutal efficiency, skinny ribbons curling like dead rose petals. Absurd how something so orange tastes like a dirt sandwich. But hunger's alchemy transforms even the blandest fare. A misjudged slice nicks your thumb. Salt iron blends with root sap. 3 drops hit the pot. Could have been worse. Vikings believed vegetable blood strengthened stews, or so the scalds claim. You doubt it, but the broth does deepen to a richer amber. Celeriac follows, ugly as a troll's kneecap. The knife hesitates. This one's tougher than the rest. You imagine some long-dead crone cackling as she buried the damn thing. Split it twice. Inner flesh weeps milky tears. Into the pot it goes, silencing the phantom laughter. 7 vegetables. Always 7. Not 6, not 8. Superstition or practicality. Your grandmother swore odd numbers pleased the hearth spirits. She also believed turnips repelled wolves. Neither theory's been tested. Tonight feels ripe for disappointment. The pot's surface churns, a miniature sea storm trapped in cast iron. You skim off foam, gray scum clinging to the ladle like shy pond algae. One globule trembles, then plops onto the coals. It hisses, a dying serpent's last rasp. Wind rattles the shutter, sharp reminder of the world beyond your knife. Cold air nips your neck. The hearth's warmth barely reaches your hunched shoulders. You blow on raw fingertips, scenting honey and loam under the burn. Black turnip, final insult from the root cellar. Its bitterness clings to your palms. Could strip varnish off a church pew. You shave it paper thin, watch the slices curl into onyx scrolls. They sink without ceremony, joining the murky symphony below. A flicker of movement, Your blade reflects firelight in jagged bursts. For half a heartbeat, the steel shows a face that isn't yours. Old nightmare. You breathe through it, focus on the last carrot's woody taproot. 7's the number. Always 7. The broth gulps down each offering, hungry as the night outside. Your knife hand cramps, blister rising where calluses once ruled. 13 winters since you first held this blade. Or 14. The fire spits, answering for the silence. You wipe the steel on your apron, streaks of orange and black, resembling a crude sunset. The hearth exhales, emberglow catching your swaying shadow. It dances across mortar cracks, a puppet show for the watching vegetables. 7. Always 7. The blade's rhythm takes hold, wooden thunk, scrape, thunk, a metronome counting down the gloaming. Carrots glare up from the board, their sunset hue at odds, with the murk clinging to the walls. You slice them coin thin, each disc rolling sideways like tiny runaway wheels. 18 generations of peasant cooks probably cursed these orange bastards. At least yours aren't fuzzy, with rot, small mercies. Medieval blacksmiths forged kitchen blades thicker than swords, a fact you appreciate as the edge splits another root. Yours could use sharpening. The drag leaves white scars in the carrot's flesh. Outside, frost gnaws at the shutters. Inside, your knife carves warmth into existence. A disc sticks to your palm. You flick it toward the pot. Misses. Lands on the hearthstone. It blackens instantly, edges curling like a dead spider. Probably how they invented charcoal biscuits. You leave it there, a snack for the mice or the dark. 3 carrots yield 94 coins. Not that you're counting. The number feels wrong. Too even, too divisible. Your thumb rubs the knife's notch, a chip earned during that incident with the frozen turnip. Historians still argue whether English root stews included paprika before Columbus. You've got none, just the metallic tang of old iron leaching into broth. Sweat beads under your collar, despite the cold. Blade meets board, pine resin oozes from a fresh scar in the wood. The scent hijacks your lungs, sudden memory of climbing trees as a child. Knuckles white on the branch, same grip you're using now. The broth belches, a wet interruption. You line up another carrot. This one's core glows like molten amber, too beautiful to boil. Tough luck, friend. The knife crunches through tissue, cytosis in reverse, biology's distant cousin, home economics. 5 coins escape the board, tumble into ash. Let the hearth gods have their tribute. Your pinky brushes the pot, scald sting follows. Suck air through teeth, mistake. Lungful of wood smoke triggers a coughing fit. Eyes stream. The knife wobbles, embarrassing. A 16th century cookbook suggests carrot tops cure coughs. You glare at the leafy corpses in the scrap bowl. Liars. Something moves in the rafters, rat or shifting thatch. Doesn't matter. The knife's song resumes. Thunk, scrape, thunk. Broth bubbles approve. Your palms sting, blisters rising where calluses peeled away last winter. You'll miss those calluses, like old friends who moved to a warmer climate. Carrot coins sink in slow motion, gold dissolving into gloom. Their color survives longer than taste, optical illusion of nourishment. Still, the pot looks richer now, dappled like a forest floor in autumn. Silver spoon stirs the mess, 12 rotations clockwise. Anti-clockwise invites ill luck. Or was that salt over the shoulder? The blade catches firelight, flashes of orange in the steel. For a breath, it mirrors a face. Young you, wide-eyed, and holding a dull kitchen dagger. Your father's laugh booming, aim for the heart, not the spleen. Memory evaporates. Current you stabs a carrot with unnecessary force. Wind howls, drafts lift the linen curtain. Frost creeps across the threshold, glass patterns mirrored on stone. You shift stance, block the cold's intrusion with your body. Stupid heroics, the hearth scoffs, launches a cinder at your boot. Misses, barely. Blade meets bone, the final carrot's woody core. It splinters, shrapnel pinging off the kettle. One shard lands in your sleeve. Warm broth droplets follow, emblems of sloppy work. 14th century surgeons used carrot poultices to draw out evil humors. You pluck the splinter, toss it into the flames. Evil humor extracted. The board's a massacre, orange pulp, mangled greens, knife grooves dark with age, a kingdom's ransom in roots, reduced to chaos. You scrape the last bits into your palm, cup them over the pot. Let them fall like oracle bones. Their pattern promises nothing. Steam coats your chin, makes you look like a saint in those misty icons. Saint of half-frozen fingertips, patron of lumpy stews. The ladle dips, broth coats it like liquid sap. Not thick enough. Not yet. Hunger sharpens the spine, you'll eat it anyway. Fire pops, startles the blade from your grip. It clatters, edge biting into the table. Quirks of metallurgy. The steel survives wars, but chips on pine. You retrieve it, thumb testing the new notch. A souvenir, tomorrow's problem. The knife rests, its song replaced by the broth's gurgle. Blister throbs in time with your pulse. Outside, something yelps. Fox or traveler doesn't matter. You're here. The vegetables are dead. The pot bubbles on. Shadows stretch, merge with the coming dark. Your reflection warps in the ladle, a funhouse version of exhaustion. You toast it with air. The first taste burns heat and earth and metallic aftertaste. Not good, not bad, just sustenance. The blade watches from its corner, patient as stone. Mouse scratches join the drip hiss of the hearth. You leave the last carrot coin on the floor, truce offering. Tomorrow's work will begin before dawn. Tonight, let the steel sleep, let the roots stew. Let the cold press its face against the glass, flames hiss, a wet log's betrayal. You feed the fire, another birch limb, its bark peels into scrolls. Archaeologists found Viking Age hearths stuffed with burned rune sticks, messages to gods, or grocery lists. Your offering blackens, sparks swirl like drunken fireflies. Heat prickles your shins, the pot's burble deepens, a bass note beneath the chimney's wine. That traveler's bowl sits empty by the door. Should have asked his name. Too late now. A Norse saga claims hearth smoke carries whispers to Odin's ravens. You hope they're bad at gossip. The log splits, revealing amber resin veins. Your nail picks at the sticky gold. Tolkien nicked his elf lore from Icelandic hearth tales, a fact that shatters certain Reddit forums. Sap strings cling like molten honey, snap when you pull. Medieval midwives used birch gum for salves. You lick your thumb, regret the piney bitterness instantly. Fire shifts, a blue tongue licks rotten wood. Your father's voice echoes, ghosts ride cobalt flames. Childhood, you believed him. Current, you Googled gas emissions. Still, you scoot back. Embers outline a face in the soot-stained bricks, hook nose, hollow eyes. Pareidolia, or ancestral scold. The manual medievally warned against staring at hearth visions after sunset. You blink, it becomes a random crack. Close one. Wind screams down the chimney, ash geysers into the room. Coughing, you grab the bellows. Historians still argue whether Roman hypocausts inspired medieval fireplace designs. Your lungs vote no. 3 squeezes reignite the blaze, muscle memory from tavern kitchens. A flame leaps your shadow, mocks you on the back wall, all nose and frizz. 10th century peasants feared shadow selves were separate entities, called them hauntlings. You wiggle fingers, your hauntling flips the bird. Must be hereditary. The fire pops, a spark lands in your lap. Ember, meet wool, the sizzle dies fast, your tunic gains a charcoal beauty mark. Byzantine emperors wore fire-scorched robes as status symbols. You're basically royalty. Heat warps the air, stone walls seem to ripple. Sweat drips off your chin. Vikings soaked in saunas till they hallucinated, claimed it helped them see through time. You squint at the coals, nope. Just coals. A log collapses, throne room of embers crumbling. You probe it with the poker. Orange cinders cling to the rod, miniature cities ablaze. Historians found Pompeii-style ash bodies in London's old hearth pits. You shake them off, microapocalypse in the footwarmer. Smoke stings your nostrils, sudden flash of your cousin's bonfire parties. Stolen wine and charred marshmallows. The memory curdles he died at Agincourt. Wrong century. Right ache, you toss juniper branches into the flames. Their perfume battles the soot. Renaissance plague doctors prescribed smoke baths. You inhale deeply, congestion lifts. Take that, modern medicine. Midnight creeps in the fire's heartbeat slows. Your stew spoon stands sentry in the pot. Cold handle, blue veins map your wrist. Pulse sinks with flickering light. 9th century Welsh bards recited verse to dying fires. You hum a Spotify jingle, sacrilege or progress. The last logs a skeletal thing, its spine too stubborn to break. You jam it diagonally. Flames climb, golden wolves chasing their tails. Mongols believed fire purified stolen goods. Your guilt's probably flammable too. Teeth chatter despite the heat. Ironies frost on your ribs. Tudor wives hid love letters in chimney stones. You press a palm to the bricks, nothing but dust and spider webs. Embers dim, the room shrinks with the light. Inkblot shadows become mice, then stones, then nothing. German chimney sweeps carried ladders to avoid demon grabbers. Your broom leans close enough. Wind dies. The pot lid's rattle stops. Silence folds around the hearth, heavy wool blanket of quiet. You poke the coals, red eyes blink open, let them watch. Your bones are too tired for ghost stories. Fingers graze the salt jar, sprinkle some on the mantle. Old trick against hearth spirits. Archaeologists found charred barley cakes in Anglo-Saxon fire pits, offerings, or midnight snacks. Your stomach growls. Jury's out. The dying fire sighs, final breath of a dragon. You don't move. Let the dark come. Let the frost take the corners. Your cheeks tighten, icy glaze sealing tomorrow's kindling. Coarse grains tumble from your palm, tiny avalanches melting into steam. The broth's growl softens a bassoon instead of a drum. Roman soldiers salted wounds to prevent rot. You rub your thumb raw, still better than legionary field medicine. Salt sting lingers on cracked cuticles. The jar's rim wears a lace of crust, centuries of cooks, rushed pinches. Mithraic cults once sprinkled sacred salt to blind evil spirits. Your visitor's bowl could use a dose. Too late now. Steam carries the scent north, imagined Baltic shores, where this salt first crusted. Hanseatic traders carried blocks stamped with raven sigils. Your scoop holds 1,000,000 dead waves. Historians still argue whether Phoenician ships reached the Baltic for salt or accident. Geography says drunken navigator. A grain sticks to your wrist, crystal prism catching firelight. You suck it off, brine and iron tang. Tudor bakers hid salt codes in bread loaves, rebel messages for jailed kin. This batch just says hungry. Broth bubbles telescope, upward, thin domes bursting into vapor. 14 pops before the pattern breaks. Paracelsus prescribed counting them for gout relief. Your knee feels maybe placebo better. Vikings believed salt steam revived drowned men. You lean closer, lungs burning like a Bergen fisherman's. The spoon handle leaves grooves in your palm, temporary hieroglyphs. Carthaginians salted ruins to curse Roman conquerors. You trace the marks, no curses here, just white lines on red skin. A sneeze wrecks the moment. Salt dust drifts, miniature snowstorm over the pot. 17th century samurai carried salt pouches to purify battlefields. Your battlefields, a 6-foot kitchen, purification level questionable. Fire hisses as dripping sweat hits stones. Your nape prickles heat and salt crust tag teaming misery. Medieval Persian cooks added salt to ice for early sorbets. Genius. Delicious. Cruelty to overheated outpost chefs. The broth's surface grows a wrinkled skin. You puncture it with a knife tip. Rorschach blot or edible art. Napoleonic soldiers boiled seaweed for salt during blockades. Your version lacks the fishy aftertaste. Probably. Salt cellar reflects the fire, dulled glass, become a molten jewel. Venetian merchants lied about salt coming from mermaid tears. You peer closer. Just a chip off some Bavarian mine. Still pretty, a draft lifts steam into wraith shapes, swirling skirts, grasping hands. You scatter another pinch. Manons used salt in labyrinth rituals to confuse ghosts. Seems to work. The shapes dissolve. Mostly, your teeth grind a stray grain, crunch amplifies in your skull. Aztec brine drinkers hallucinated ocean gods after days without fresh water. You swallow. No deities, just thirst. The pot's edges grow a frost of salt, delicate as marsh ice. Tudor housewives believed it predicted storms. Count the crystals. 39. Skies stay clear. Superstition. 0. Practicality. 1. Stirring paints bronze swirls in the broth. Van Gogh in broth form. Roman engineers floated eggs in salt water to test grain preservation. Your spoon stands upright. Salinity. Legion approved. Knuckles brush the salt cellar, warm glass from the fire's fever. Chinese alchemists mixed saltpeter and sulfur over hearths. Inadvertent fireworks. You nudge it further from the flames. Wisdom through near disasters. A grain bounces into the fire, miniature sparklers. Edo period Japanese salt vendors hawked dragon breath for good luck. You flick another. The hearth coughs. Not impressed. Fatigue salts your eyes. Blurry vision turns steam into phantom ships. Dutch salt tax protesters burned their own harbors. You blink. Just steam. Just fire. Just exhaustion. The broth's hum dips lower, slower, like a giant snap breathing. Salt crusts the ladle handle, grit under your palm. Antarctic explorers licked salt rocks to stave off madness. You resist the urge. Barely. Fire pops. Salt-encrusted logs crack like distant gunpowder. 30 years. War sappers tunneled under salt stores to cripple cities. Your stores are safe. Unless the rats recruit, moonlight through the smoke hole hits the salt jar, glowing like pirates' loot. Caribbeans still sing work songs from the Turk's island salt ponds. You hum a fragment. Rhythm matches the simmer. Trembling fingers misjudge the pour. A salt bomb detonates in the pot. Coughing, you stir frantically. Persians buried excess salt to calm angry earth. Maybe toss a handful out back later. The broth's whisper turns sandy, grit between syllables. Your tongue tests it. Perfect. Salt's done its nameless work, like the Phoenician porters who hauled it, mouths gagged against thirst. Embers imitate the salt's glitter, a duet of earth and fire. You cap the jar. The traveler's ghost, if he's watching, gets no encore. Wind shifts, smoke flees through the roof. Salt air from some real sea mingles with hearth smoke. Your lungs burn sweetly. Marseille salt boilers wore tin masks against fumes. Fancy. You've got a sweaty rag. Midnight licks the salt line on the table crumb by crumb. Time was salt currencies and ledger books. Now it's just you, a jar, and the grudging approval of soup. Salt brands the steam, tiny moons orbiting your face. You close your eyes, taste the tide pools of 100 dead coasts. The pot sighs. So do you. Silence thickens. Even the fire respects the salt's domain. Tomorrow's ache waits in your joints. But tonight the broth holds the sea's stolen heartbeat. You ladle it like a smuggler counting coins. Your sleeve smears stinging eyes. Onion juice wages chemical warfare through twilight gloom. Twilight kitchens always loosen tear ducts. Coincidence? Doubtful. Blade meets onion. A wet crunch echoes off mortar walls. Layers spill apart like spoiled pharaohs' burial linens. Historians still argue whether workers built pyramids fueled by radish stew or onion rations. The knife whispers onions, fingers grip slippery hemispheres, pale moons bleeding bitter dew. Venetian nobles wore onion-scented masks during plagues. Your current aroma, less nobility, more regret. First slice clings to the blade, translucent as cobwebs. Medieval monks believed onion skins revealed future lovers' initials. Yours spells a butcher's thumbprint. Close enough. Chopping speeds up, thunk, 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 like a faltering heart. Each disc glistens with volatile spite. 18th century French chefs called this the weeping cut. Apt, cruel. Steam drifts over the board, onion stink softens into sweetness. Eye sockets throb. Cleopatra's perfumers used onion extract in love potions. You make a mental note. Never trust ancient Egyptians. A rogue slice escapes, skitters into ash. Rats will feast tonight. Vikings rubbed onions on sword blades to sterilize wounds. Your cuticle bleeds. You consider it. Pass. Knife hilt grows slippery. Handle carved with someone else's grip marks. Czars taxed peasants in onion bundles during crop failures. Your payment. Another lungful of acid vapor. Firelight glints off tear tracks. Liquid salt mining your cheeks. Hatshepsut, they say, demanded onion bouquets in her tomb. Rotting flowers. Fine, rotting alliums. Sensory assault. Palm sweeps diced mounds into broth. They sink like drowned pearls. Roman banquet clowns reportedly juggled onions blindfolded. You'd rather swallow live eels. Resin-stained fingers rub lids. Irritation sparks memory. Victorian factories employed onion girls to peel 16 hours daily. Their ghostly fingerprints stain your cutting board. Solidarity burns. A deep breath backfires. Raw onion ambushes your sinuses. Cortez found Aztec markets selling roasted onions with chili. You'd trade linen scraps for that recipe. Glass jars tremble as you reach for time, onion fumes softening their contents. Civil War nurses placed sliced onions in sick rooms to absorb infection. Germ theory just laughs. Shadows stretch, your hunched form becomes a twisted tree on the wall. Pompeian wall art shows onions dangling in tavern kitchens. Eternal veggies for eternal ghosts. The last onion glares, bulbous dictator of the vegetable basket. You behead it with unnecessary force. Ottoman poets compared layered onions to human deceit. Fitting. Broth bubbles riff on the new ingredients, higher pitch, faster tempo. Elizabethan stagehands burned onions to simulate battle smoke. Your stew pot's Act V, digestive revenge. Knife taps idle rhythm, blunt edge denting wood grain. Archaeologists found onion pollen in Bronze Age fishing nets. Bait. Seasoning. Prehistoric cooks took secrets to peat bogs. Tears dry sticky, salted tracks tighten skin. A 1920s ad campaign claimed onion rubs cured baldness. Your scalp tingles. Coincidence? Definitely. Smoke stings less than onion air, hell's hierarchy revealed. You fan the hearth, embers spit in protest. 7-year-old, you would cry slicing spring onions. Some things don't improve. Cool drafts soothe burning eyelids, temporary mercy. 16th century Dutch still lifes always include one rotten onion. Vanitas, symbolism, your whole crop's halfway there. The pot's murmur grows smug, conquered onions now docile. Silk Road merchants paid border bribes in dried onion strings. You'd bankrupt nations with tonight's yield. Pale strands cling to your wrist, glutinous reminders. Depression era, hobo signs warned of onion-heavy stews at nearby farms. Compliment. Warning. You double-check the door latch. Moonlight glazes the broth. Onion skins swirl like Fanta black feathers. A Greek proverb claims peeled onions reveal truth. Your truth. This better feed 3 travelers. Fatigue blurs the knife's edge dangerous game. Napoleonic sailors ate onions to prevent scurvy. Vitamin C triumphs again. Your fingertips lack citrus, but thrum with survival. The bowl steams, caramelized edges mimic sunsets you've forgotten. You blow across the surface, ripples distort your reflection into a carnival mirror's leer. First sip punches through sweet char and marrow warmth. That mad Roman emperor grew onion-shaped pearls. You've outdone him. Take that, Caligula. The latch creaks, a splintery wheeze cutting through stew-thick air. Wind shoulders its way inside, needle-sharp, and smelling of frozen pines. A cough rattles behind the door, less human than creaking cartwheel. You tighten your grip on the ladle warmth leaching into icy knuckles. 3 centuries back, English innkeepers could legally refuse travelers during pestilence. No law binds this wind-scraped outpost, just the pot's murmuring depths. Mercy, the voice grates like saw blade on oak. A mittened hand grips the doorframe, frost crystals glinting in firelight. Historians still argue whether Beggar's frostbite was medieval performance art or genuine suffering. Tonight's audition wins awards. You gesture inward, the universal language of steaming food and dumb survival instinct. Their boots shed snow like mangy dog fur. Your broom weeps silently in the corner. 14th century Danes hung upside-down brooms to repel unwanted guests. Too late now. The stranger huddles by the hearth, ice melting into their cloaks' moth-eaten hem. Steam rises as they breathe, a dragon parody. Elizabethan peddlers sold dragon's breath as a cure for chilblains. You offer stew instead. Ladle scrapes the pot's bottom, that hollow song of reluctant charity. They sip through chapped lips, a wet, guttural sound. Ottoman caravanserais provided free lodging if you recited poetry. This one just whimpers. Firelight exposes their face, raw cheeks mapping decades of bad roads. A scar slices through salt and pepper stubble, Cro-Magnon tally. Marks for winters survived. 18th century surgeons used onion poultices on such wounds. Your eyes sting in solidarity. Wind howls through the gaping door, a feral counterpoint to their gulps. Another, the bowl trembles in their grip, porcelain clattering like loose teeth. You nod while eyeing the pot's remains. Genghis Khan's warriors ate steaming stews from enemy skulls. Overachievers, they drain the second serving. Broth glazes their chin like amber varnish. Your spoon scrapes the ladle, tinny desperation, masking your stomach's growl. Roman emperors staged fake sieges to test loyalty. You're loyal, hungry, but loyal. The stranger's eyes dart to your herb shelves, lingering on the cinnamon jar. Medieval thieves swallowed pepper to fake plague symptoms. You shift position, blocking the valuables with practiced nonchalance. Where bound, your question hangs between ladle clinks. They mutter about northern mines, silver veins, and collapsed tunnels. Tsarist Russia exiled prisoners to those pits. Their chipped front tooth sparkles as they lie. Ash whispers down the chimney, powdered ghost of last night's fire. The empty bowl cracks against the table, a ceramic gunshot. Inca messengers ran mountain trails, fueled by mashed potato balls. You'd need a dozen to chase this interloper out. They rise unsteadily, cloak dripping on your last dry flagstone. A coin appears in their palm-tarnished bronze, stamped with a forgotten king's profile. Vikings buried rulers with coins for corpse fairy payments. You're no Karen, but you take it. The door swallows them whole winter, reclaiming its disciple. You press a palm to the latch pine, resin oozing through a long-heeled axe groove. Historians still argue whether frontier doors opened inward to welcome or to barricade. The answer freezes outside, coughing. Embers pop as you crouch by the hearth, the pot's dregs congealing into edible fossils. One onion strand clings to the rim, translucent flag of surrender. You spear it on the ladle. Victory never tasted so bitter. Your nails claw dough from under ragged cuticles, sticky webs of failure clinging to knuckles. The hearth's dying breath warms your back as you crumble the yeast cake, pale crumbs bobbing in a clay mug of tepid water. Ancient Egyptians worshipped bread so much they buried loaves with pharaohs. Yours deserves a shallow grave. Foam blossoms across the mug's surface, a bubbly fungal bloom. Viking bread sometimes used fermented fish, oil as leavening. Your nose wrinkles at the thought. Better not ask where the Outpost's last trader sourced this batch. Flour cascades onto the table, a miniature snowdrift in the firelight. Your palms drag through it, etching gullies for salt-dusted water. 14th century bakers faced execution for underweight loaves. No laws here, just the dough's rising judgment. Knuckles sink into the mess, a wet squelch that would horish modern bakers. Historians still argue whether medieval clod bread contained actual dirt or just looked that way. Your creation bridges both theories. The lump groans as you fold it, elastic resistance melting into grudging compliance. A sour tang seeps into the air, yeast farts, technically. Your linen cloth drapes over the bowl, a shroud for culinary shame. You crouch by the hearth's residual heat, dough bulging like a drunkard's belly under its cover. Renaissance bakers shaped bread into obscene figures to protest taxes. Yours takes the form of regret. Fingers brush flour from your sleeves, ghostly handprints dusting the floor. Someone's ancestor probably tripped on scattered meal and invented the broom. You kick the powder under the table, future use problem. The dough exhales, linen rippling with its sigh. Mongol warriors carried sourdough starters in saddlebags to bake on conquests. Your conquest, not burning tomorrow's breakfast. Wind sneaks under the door, a frozen tongue licking your ankles. You flip the dough with unnecessary violence, vengeance for its smug expansion. 19th century Parisian bakers slept atop ovens to guard their starters. You'd rather nap in a snowdrift. A crack splits the dough's surface, a yawn revealing yeasty depths. Aztecs used edible algae to make bread float. Yours could sink ships. Your thumbnail traces the gash stickier than a noble's apology. The linen clings when you recover it, spiderwebbing gluten strands in its threads. Medieval peasants chewed grain to start fermentation. You chew your lip instead, saliva's too precious here. Embers whisper stories in glowing runes across the ceiling. The dough grows heavy with ambition, pushing against its cotton prison. Byzantine bakers had guilds. You've got a knife and low standards. Knuckles wrap the table in a restless rhythm, tapping out a hymn to distraction. A fly circles the bowl, daring you to swat. 1815's year, without summer saw grass bread recipes. You eyeball the floor flour. The dough's warmth seeps into your palm through the cloth, a feverish pulse. Truck drivers during America's Dust Bowl kept starters alive in thermoses. Yours survives through spite. You peel back a corner, pale flesh springing back from your prodding finger. 17th century witch trials accused bakers of cursing dough. Current evidence supports the theory. Fire pops, a final coal surrendering to ash. The dough dominates the bowl, now a successful coup. You drag the linens higher, tucking it in like a monstrous child. The hearth's corpse radiates residual heat. Hunger gnaws at your ribs, a blunt saw on green wood. Your palm flattens against the dough's taut hide, feeling the hive mind buzz beneath. Historians still argue whether quick bread meant speed or witchcraft. Both feel plausible tonight. Your breath fogs the air, each exhale a miniature blizzard. The dough's slow fermentation mirrors your own, waiting for dawn's uncertain rise. Midnight licks the hut's walls, your shadow stretches across the pot's pitted iron. Ladle dips, it's like dredging a swamp for hidden gold. 13th century monks wrote recipes where onion soup cures cowardice. Yours might just cure hope. Steam floods your nostrils, a humid slap of marrow and thyme. Some claim Charlemagne's cooks thickened stews with crushed rubies for color. You settle for muddier carrots. The ladle handle creaks, a frozen hinge protesting the plunge. Liquid coats the metal, dripping fat, congealing into amber teardrops. The bowl warms your palms, its cracks mapping forgotten fault lines. You blow, ripples distort the oily rainbow on the surface. Tudor nobles served soup in edible pastry bowls called coffins. Yours chipped last winter, the elk stew incident. First sip scalds, punishment for impatience. The broth coats your tongue, bone bitterness cut by rogue sweetness. A tuber's last gasp. Viking traders boiled lichen as famine food. You pray it's lichen. Firelight glints in the broth, a liquid mirror smudged by steam. Your teeth find a gristly surprise, sinew or parasite. Historians still argue whether medieval mystery stews contained more rat or reverence. The spoon clinks, each scrape echoes in the hollowed-out quiet. Cold air nips your ears, a counterpoint to the gulping heat. Aztec chocolate soup used chili powder for froth. You'd kill for foam instead of grease slick. Cheeks flush, circulation waking up limbs numbed by hours of crouching. A stray eyelash floats, making landfall among carrot shreds. You fish it out, wishing traditions included soup strainers. The traveler's bowl steams untouched, a polite fiction between strangers. Your pinky tests its rim, still hotter than hell's doorknob. Mongol messengers carried frozen soup blocks to melt in saddlebags. This'll freeze again before dawn. Ladle scrapes the pot's belly, a metallic screech that sets your teeth vibrating. You ration the last dregs, 3 globules of fat bobbing like surrendered ships. Civil War soldiers thinned broth with gunpowder for courage. You stick to pepper, wind moans through the chimney, a harmony with your stomach's growl. The final gulp sits heavy, a warm stone in your gut. Archaeologists found Bronze Age soup pots with fossilized dribbles down the sides. Your dribbles will outlive you. Empty bowl meets table, a dull thud that startles the mice above. Tongue probes a peppercorn wedged in your molar, spice's last ambush. Roman chefs plotted soup temperatures using weighted duck feathers. You've got a finger and regret. The ladle stands sentinel, its bowl reflecting a warped crescent of fire. Blistered lips sting salt and heat collaborating on delayed revenge. Mayan royalty drank turtle blood soup from jade cups. You wipe your chin on a crust-stiffened sleeve. Embers paint the ceiling, writhing shapes that almost look intentional. The traveler's breath hitches, a wet rattle beneath his sheepskins. You pretend not to hear. 18th century hospitals fed plague victims cure-all broth laced with mercury. Some cures smolder slower than sickness. Frost etches ferns across the windowsill, a delicate counterpoint to the pot's burnt scabs. Your thumbnail picks at a caramelized crust, flakes dissolving into grit. Sailors chewed lime zest to fend off scurvy. You chew silence instead. The hearth's last coal winks out, darkness pooling like spilled broth. Palms hover over the pot's residual warmth, stealing's comfort from abandoned metal. Medieval alchemists believed soup steam carried souls to the afterlife. Yours carries carrot stench. Midnight breathes through the room, siphoning heat from your nape. You rise, stiff knees cracking like desiccated kindling. Empty bowls watch as you retreat, their glaze gleaming like hungry eyes. Ash drifts upward, each flake a black snowflake against star-pricked sky. You count 6 ember glows left, Pleiades mirrored in the hearth. The Bronze Age soup pot of held mutton broth for 3 millennia. Yours barely lasted 3 hours. Empty ladle clatters against the pot's lip, a metallic hiccup in the quiet. Your fingertip traces the iron curve, still warm where flames once clung. Arctic explorers believed frost patterns predicted tomorrow's weather. These ice ferns whisper nothing useful. A log collapses, sparking one final rebellion of light. Shadows leap, briefly forming a hunched figure by the door. Historians still argue whether Neolithic cookware scorch marks were accidental or ritual. Your blisters vote for clumsiness. Breath fogs the air, your exhalation tangling with lingering steam. The traveler's bowl sits emptied now, its dregs hardening into a lacquered grin. Cleopatra's perfumers used ash from incense burners in their unguents. You sniff charcoal and regret. Knees crack as you stand, flagstones leaching warmth through worn boot soles. The pot's last heat radiates upward, a dying animal's panting breath. Medieval scribes illustrated soup cauldrons as gateways to hell. Tonight, it's just a dirty dish. Ash motes settle on your sleeve, gray freckles against faded wool. You scrape the pot's bottom, iron screeching like a barn owl. 18th century kitchen maids hid love letters in stew pots to waterproof them. Your secrets stay stuck to the ladle. Window frost thickens, blurring the world to smudged charcoal strokes. A moth bobs near the dead fire, wings powdered with stolen starlight. Mongol warriors drank melted snow from their helmets. You lick condensation off a spoon instead. The last ember dims, its orange pupil narrowing to a pinprick. Darkness spreads like spilled broth, cold seeping into your collarbone. Tudor physicians prescribed ash tea for melancholy. You'd prefer whiskey. Teeth chatter a staccato rhythm beneath the wind's whine. Palms hover over the hearth, catching phantom warmth from remembered flames. Victorian sailors read their futures in soot patterns on ship cookware. Yours just shows burnt parsnip. Mouse claws scritch above, a reminder you're not the only scavenger here. The pot's emptiness feels louder now, a cavern echoing with every drip from the roof. Roman midwives Buried placenta stew pots under hearths for luck. You'll settle for surviving till dawn. A draft snakes under the door, frost-kissed fingers groping for residual heat. You press your spine against the cooling pot, metal branding a crescent moon between your shoulders. The oldest known soup recipe involves hippo meat and lotus roots. Your masterpiece involved desperation and a dented knife. The night hiccups, a wolf's howl fraying at the edges. Stars wheel unseen, their patterns rewritten by thickening cloud. Marie Antoinette's chefs served clear broth in hollowed diamonds. You swish tepid dregs in a chipped clay bowl. Eyelids sink, the dark pressing its thumb against your skull. The traveler snores, a wet, gurgling counterpoint to silence. Edo period samurai infused combat focus by staring at boiling miso. You focus on not collapsing into the ashes. Frost creeps across the table, advancing on your abandoned spoon. You pocket it, metal leaching cold through your thigh. 17th century alchemists stirred their brews with lodestone ladles to attract cosmic energies. Yours just attracts lip-chapping winters. Dawn remains a rumor, the horizon clenched like a fist. You curl tighter, each shiver scrubbing the last warmth from your marrow. Archaeologists found Viking soup stones passed down as heirlooms. This pot's legacy is crust and endurance. The hearth exhales its final wisp of smoke, a soul-abandoning ship. Your pinky grazes the pot's rim one last time, still cradling summer's ghost in its iron ribs. The jar cracks open with a groan, splinters clinging to cinnamon bark like amber scabs. Your thumbnail digs out a pinch, its rusty scent stinging colder air. Medieval Europeans thought spices grew in griffon nests, guarded by winged serpents. This stash came via a one-eyed fur trader and 2 suspiciously stained fox pelts. Woodgrain bites your palm, reminding you of that barter under September oaks. Laughter had echoed, then now swallowed by winter's mute throat. Ancient Egyptians used cinnamon in embalming fluid, secret mixtures swallowed by tomb walls. You wonder if this dust could preserve anything but memories. A threadbare sachet spills granules, each fleck glowing burnt orange in dying firelight. Your fingertip sweeps them up, heat lingering where they touched skin. Historians still argue whether monsoon winds or camel caravans spread spices faster. Your tongue votes for black market riverboats. The spice cloud hits broth, seething liquid gilding itself in sunset hues. Steam carries whispers of Ceylon's humid markets, sacks bursting with stolen sunbeams. 17th century aristocrats snorted cinnamon to show off their wealth. You inhale deeper, proof of poorer, but wiser choices. Shards clatter as you set the jar down, its jagged mouth still grinning. 3 splinters lodge under your thumbnail, a petty revenge for being emptied. Byzantine emperors floated cinnamon torches to mask palace coup smells. Your hearth just masks desperation with nostalgia. The broth's surface shimmers now, liquid topaz, swirling over parsnip sediment. You stir clockwise, resisting the urge to trace protective sigils. Tudor bakers accidentally poisoned a cardinal with cinnamon-laced communion wafers. Your blasphemy stays purely culinary. A cough rips free spice dust, tickling your trachea like a lover's cruel joke. The traveler mutters in his sleep something about marble baths and scented oils. Roman orgies featured cinnamon foot washes for elite partygoers. You scrub your heel against a frozen flagstone instead. Teeth grind a stray bark flake, bitterness exploding behind molars. Your grimace pulls tight, face contorting like a dried apple doll. Certain Himalayan tribes chew cinnamon during blizzards to hallucinate summer meadows. All you see are grease streaks on the pot. Frost creeps up the jar's neck, crawling toward its broken shoulders. You pocket a shard, splintered edge pricking your thigh through woolen layers. Ming Dynasty smugglers sewed spices into funeral shrouds to evade tax collectors. Your contraband's already been digested. The broth thickens, each bubble bursting with caramelized sweetness. Ladle trembles in your grip, metal handle warped from decades of misuse. Aztec healers applied cinnamon poultices to arrow wounds. You consider pressing it to your wind-chapped lips. Shadows shift, moonlight slicing through cloud cover to gild the steam. For 3 breaths, the vapor hangs perfect, a honeyed galaxy overhead. Victorian spice frauds sold ground acacia bark, dyed with beet juice. This counterfeit at least tastes like loss. Your tongue darts out, catching a stray grain stuck to the ladle. Heat floods your mouth, summer exploding behind sealed eyelids. Ottomans buried cinnamon sticks with sailors to mask decomposition at sea. You swallow, forcing the memory down like a pill. The jar's last shard snaps under your boot finality, echoing off soot-stained walls. Knees hit frozen earth as you reach for the pot, fingers curling around its wrought iron handle. 17 generations of French chefs dueled over cinnamon's proper use in bouillon. You dump it all in anyway. Wind screams through chinked logs, rattling the broken jar against its brethren. Porcelain shards chime a discordant lullaby for your chattering teeth. Modern food scientists claim cinnamon boosts cognitive function in extreme cold. You still can't remember where you buried the good ladle. Dawn remains theoretical, a gray smudge clawing at eastern clouds. The cinnamon's musk clings to your tunic pores, an aromatic scar. Silk Road merchants slept atop spice sacks for warmth and status dreams. You curl tighter around the cooling pot, its false hearth pressed to your ribs. Frost feathers branch across the glass, each icy tendril swallowing more of the wolf song beyond. Your thumb finds the windowsill's dip, polished smooth by 10,000 midnight absences. Medieval glaziers used urine to melt ice from cathedral windows during repairs. Your breath makes weaker magic, fogging a fist-sized patch of clarity. A pine bough cracks outside, its frozen sap prison-shattering. Wolves answer their vowels warped by ice and double-paned distortion. Your thumbnail traces the sill's groove, wondering whose anxious fingers carved this trench. Renaissance nobles hired frost collectors to scrape window ice for exotic cocktails. You lick the glass instead, regretting it before your tongue sticks. The pot's residual warmth fights through your tunic, a dying sun against permafrost. Knees pop as you shift, joints crackling like kindling in dry cold. Historians still argue whether medieval stained glass caused snow blindness hallucinations. Your vision blurs anyway, frost fractals merging with floaters in the gloom. 3 wolves materialize in the blur, shadows among shadows, beneath moon-drunk pines. Their breath plumes hang motionless, frozen exhalations sculpted into spectral trees. 17th century fur trappers believed frost patterns predicted tomorrow's hunt deaths. You count 6 ice branches, each fork a possible omen. Your heel grinds into the hearth's edge, searching for lingering heat in ash. A splinter bites. The price of remembering floorboards don't glow here. Tudor servants placed hot bricks under windows to melt coded messages in frost. You've got 7 frozen vegetables and a chipped bowl for company. The largest wolf turns amber eyes catching moonlight like polished doubloons. Its stare lingers, a challenge or plea beneath the glass's warping lens. Victorian scientists tried training wolves as sled dogs by soaking harnesses in beef consommé. You huddle deeper into your starchy shroud, reeking of time and false courage. Ice reclaims your breath's temporary window, swallowing the pack into crystalline static. Your fingertip writes a name in the condensation, letters bleeding into oblivion. Byzantine emperors iced palace windows year-round to amplify enemy spies. Frostbite screams. Erasing the name takes 3 swipes, fabric rasping like a butcher's steel. Moonlight fractures through the frost, projecting jagged whites onto the opposite wall. You watch the shapes merge, a flickering zoetrope of glacial hunger. Inuit storytellers claim frost spirits mimic loved ones' voices to lure out fools. The wind howls, almost forming your childhood nickname through cracked lips. The sill's groove catches your thumbnail again, snagging the quick with surgical precision. A bead of blood swells, black pearl in the cold blue light. 17th century Pomeranian farmers hung wolf jaws over doors to repel winter fevers. You smear the blood into the wood grain, red on gray like a warning. Teeth begin chattering, an involuntary Morse code narrating your decay. Jaw muscles clench to silence them, molars grinding cinnamon grit into powder. Some believe frost expands at the exact rate of human desperation. The window creaks, its timbers contracting like a ribcage mid-exhale. Shadow paws circle beyond the glass, their soundless dance mocking the fireless hearth. You press a palm to the frozen pane, skin bonding to the surface. Roman snow couriers ran with wolfskin boots to avoid frostbite amputations. Peeling away leaves an epidermal ghost, palm lines mapped in transient frost. The broth's memory lingers in your sinuses, caramelized roots and stolen spice. Hunger contracts your stomach, a cramped fist where soup once pooled. Mongol outriders survived winters by drinking hot oil and wolf blood. You swallow spit tasting tin and the afterglow of cinnamon. Frost digests the window hole, only faint moonglow outlining the wolves' patience. Your legs refuse to stand anchored by cold and the pot's hollow weight. Napoleonic soldiers blinded by snow sometimes mistook ice halos for angelic halos. You close your eyes, embracing the same delusion with fewer steps. The hearth's last cinder winks out, plunging the room into blue silence. Your thumb finds the sill's groove one final time, worn smooth by ghosts. The parsley crumbles at your touch, brittle leaves, disintegrating faster than vows in spring thaw. Roman legionaries chewed sprigs to mask battlefield rot breath. You're just trying to remember green exists. A desiccated stem stabs your thumb, nature's last practical joke in this frozen hellscape. Greens hit the broth, vibrant chlorophyll dissolving into murk like forgotten dreams. Your fingertip hovers over steam, blistered skin puckering from the insult of warmth. 17th century apothecaries prescribed parsley poultices for sword wounds and broken hearts. The burn pulses, proof you're still flesh beneath the frostbite armor. Thumb meets lip on instinct salt and bitterness, concertinaing across your tongue. 18th century chefs hid meat spoilage under parsley mountains until diners died mid-bite. You spit emerald flecks dotting ashes like morbid confetti. Moonlight bleeds through the window, etching cruciform leaf shadows on the hearthstone. The largest shadow twitches, a wolf's ear flicking at your wasted herbs. Medieval chronicles describe knights eating parsley before battle to ensure proud deaths. You swallow another bitter leaf, first the sting, then the hollow aftertaste of nothing. Ice spiders across the pot's surface, a filigree of neglect over congealing broth. Your nail chips at the frozen film, scraping sounds like bones dragged over slate. Tudor gardeners planted parsley in cradle-shaped beds to soothe colicky infants. The effort earns 3 thumbnail fractures and 0 edible results. Heat blisters rise along your knuckles, translucent domes holding summer's mocking mirage. Tongue prods the swollen skin, a saline blister burst echoing through your jaw. Historians still argue whether ancient Persians used parsley to abort pregnancies or season lamb. The answer tastes the same either way, metallic and feral. A sprig clings to the ladle's curve, its veins pulsing faint chlorophyll in the gloom. You crush it against your wrist, green streaks mimicking life's last desperate scribbles. Victorian botanists claimed night-harvested parsley could turn wine into acid with a whisper. Your wine is snowmelt, your acid is stomach bile. Frost gnaws at the window, a glazier's nightmare, devouring the moon's silver trail. Your breath fogs the pain, eyelashes freezing shut during one careless blink. Mongol riders stuffed boots with parsley to prevent frostbite amputations during steppe winters. Peeling your lids open leaves lashes gloveless, sacrificed to the ice. The broth's skin thickens, an olivaceous scum clotting like poisoned honey. You skim it anyway, ladle trembling, as lipid ropes cling to tarnished tin. Byzantine nuns drank parsley tea to mute carnal desires during Lenten vigils. The sludge slides down your throat, ancestral hunger outweighing common sense. Firewood's gone, you throw the last parsley stems onto ash-coated embers. They blacken without flame, curling into charcoal commas, punctuating despair. 18th century sailors believed burning parsley summoned storms to drown double-crossing captains. Wind rattles the shutters, either coincidence or the Atlantic's ghost demanding tribute. Your blistered thumb throbs, a mutiny against weeks of numb survival. Pressing it to frozen IRON Chinese letter, the sizzle smells like childhood pig roasts and bad decisions. Cleopatra supposedly rubbed parsley on her eyelids to repel sandfly swarms. You've got worse pests and no Nile in sight. Wolves chorus beyond the wall, their vowels warping through ice-riddled timber. Your teeth shred a sprig cell walls, bursting with stored sunlight from August. Scandinavian housewives tucked parsley into bridal bouquets to scare off troll husbands. The greenery's dead, the trolls are winning. Broth sloshes as you rise, ankles protesting like unoiled mill gears. A parsley flake floats past, its spiral descent, mirroring snow devils outside. Tudor surgeons ground parsley with mercury to cure melancholia in spurned lovers. You're mercury-free, but the gloom clings like a second tunic. Coals gasp their final breath, charred herb smoke stinging your frostbitten nostrils. The last logs a memory, the last parsley now ash silt on your molars. Historians still argue whether Roman gladiators ate parsley before fights or just before burial. You swallow grit, cheeks wet from smoke, or self-pity's leaky ducts. Wolves fall silent, the lull stretching like a noose around the moon. Your burnt thumb finds the pot's rim, blister popping on contact with frigid iron. Parsley never stood a chance here, nor will you. Yet the knife still gleams, its edge hungry for roots you'll never find. Salt crusts your lips as you smirk, cracked skin parting for gallows humor. Parsley's out, the wolves are in. Snowdrifts rise, the pot's empty, but your legs unfold anyway, because kitchens outlast cooks, and dawn owes you nothing. Your fingers scrabble at the burlap sack, coarse threads snagging on chapped cuticles. Barley grains hide in seams like fugitives, their tapered ends poking through weave gaps. Sumerian temple records list barley rations as payment for building the first ziggurats. These kernels owe you nothing. Yet here you are negotiating with frayed fabric. Pinched grains skitter across the table, pale commas punctuating dust. You sweep them into a crescent moon shape, childhood games resurfacing through hunger's static. A grain sticks to your palm, its tiny pronged beard drawing blood. Ninth century Vikings allegedly brewed barley beer so strong it dissolved whale fat torches. Your fire's dead, your beer is snow, but the barley still bites. The pot gurgles, its surface pocked with lazy bubbles. Kernels dive like kamikaze pearls, disappearing into murky depths. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers ate barley gruel for nutrition or punishment. Steam coats your face, a humid shrug against the question. Let them debate over banquets. You're just glad for warmth that moves. Plump grains rise minutes later, swollen into miniature leather pouches. Their split skins release starch, clouding the broth into opacity. Victorian explorers claimed Tibetan monks levitated after weeks of fasting on barley tea. Your knees creak as you stand levitations off the menu. Gravity's your clingy dance partner. 3 grains escape the ladle, rolling toward shadowy table corners. You trap them under a scarred thumb, smeared grease, gluing them to skin. Minoan fertility idols were stuffed with barley to bless newlyweds with sons. These 3 cling like bastard children, unwanted, but impossible to discard. Firelight glints off bloated kernels, translucent edges glowing like molten glass. A bubble bursts, spitting hot broth onto your already ruined sleeve. 8th century Chinese alchemists tried turning barley into gold using crane bile and moonlight. The stain spreads your sleeves, now worth more in bacteria than currency. You crush a cooked grain between molars. Its mush whispers of damp autumns. The taste conjures breadlines and hearths long buried under permafrost. Ottomans enforced laws punishing bakers who mixed barley flour with sawdust. Your tongue prods the paste, sawdust might add it texture. A kernel gets lodged in your back tooth, probing with a splintered nail, just embeds it deeper. Your jaw aches, chewing's a liability now. Medieval dentists packed barley husks into cavities to draw out the demon of pain. The demon's winning. Its laugh vibrates through your mandible. Steam fogs your vision, the ladle's outline blurring into a gray ghost. Blinking sends hot droplets skidding down cracked cheeks. Byzantine nuns embroidered barley sheaths onto shrouds to ease souls into the afterlife. Your shrouds the steam, your souls as light as hollow grain. The pot's bottom appears through swirling murk, scorched kernels clinging like barnacles. Your ladle scrapes metal, a sound like shovel on coffin wood. 16th century sailors chewed burnt barley to mask the taste of rancid water. You swallow the blackened bits, they taste of jantung and dead fire. Wind shrieks through the chimney, a desolate aria scattering ashes over the hearthstone. Barley silt swirls in the broth's remains, sediment of a dead harvest. You cradle the bowl, its heat leaching into marrow through shaking palms. Something clinks beneath the table, a single grain bouncing into darkness. Wolves or rats will find it, tomorrow's problem. Dutch painters used barley porridge as adhesive for their masterpiece canvases. Your masterpiece is survival, your canvas is chipped clay. The last sip coats your throat, gritty and lukewarm and absolute. Your empty bowl echoes, a ceramic mouth, frozen mid-yawn. Archaeologists found petrified barley in pharaohs' tombs, still viable after 3 millennia. These grains won't be sprouting, but neither will you. Frost etches ferns across the bowl's rim, crystals colonizing fired earth. You lick the design, a split second of wetness before skin sticks. Mongol warriors stored barley under saddles to ferment into portable alcohol. Your fermentations, internal stomach acids churning disappointment into vapor. The sack lies gutted, its wrinkles sagging like an empty scrotum. You shake it anyway, one desperate kernel pelts your eyebrow. Edwardian nutritionists swore barley could cure tuberculosis and cowardice in equal measure. The kernel falls, your cowardice remains, pulsing with each thud of the barred door. Teeth chatter a dirge as you retreat from the hearth's corpse. Barley starch glues your souls to flagstones, each step a petty rebellion. Farmers once believed sowing barley during full moons deterred crop-stealing spirits. The moon's a slit tonight. The spirits are feasting. Your thumb maps the bowl's fractures, ridges of hardened resin like scar tissue under your touch. 3rd century Romans pioneered ceramic repair with lead staples, crude metal stitches holding shattered dinnerware together. This bowl's seams ooze crimson sap, some medieval tinkerer's botched attempt at pine pitch glue. You half expect it to crumble, but the cracks hold firm, gaps transformed into roadmaps of survival. Heat bleeds through the clay, warmer than smooth vessels, despite its spiderweb flaws. Historians still argue whether patched pottery was daily drudgery or sacred preservation. You don't care, the chips cradle broth like a beggar's cupped palms. A fleck of resin sticks to your lip, tasting of turpentine and desperation. 13th century French nuns allegedly mixed chicken blood into clay paste for divine mending. Your repair's divinity is moot. It's the only bowl left unshattered. Fishers siphon broth, thin trails snake toward the table's warped edge. You trace one with a fingernail, diverting liquid back into the main pool. Pre-Columbian cultures buried cracked vessels under doorways to trap vengeful spirits. Your trapped spirit is hunger. It circles the broth's greasy meniscus. Steam fogs the deepest crack, a fogged canyon hiding last week's carrot scrap. Firelight illuminates fingerprints in the clay ghosts of 100 previous grips. Some potter's thumbprint still dents the base, their identity lost to unfired silt. Victorian archaeologists found Greek kiln sites littered with imperfect bowls, smashed by perfectionist artisans. This bowl's ugliness saved it, a testament to pragmatic decay. You drink deeper, the ragged rim bites your lower lip in solidarity. 3 hairline cracks converge, forming a spidery delta near the handle stump. Your pinky hooks through the broken handle hole, a makeshift anchor against numb fingers. Edo period Japan elevated cracked pottery to art. Kintsugi, seems gleaming with gold. Your bowl's repairs gleam with grime. Its art is not drowning you. Broth slurps echo off the bowl's concave walls, amplified by the hollow base. You tilt it sideways, watching droplets cling to resin veins like dew on cobwebs. 17th century apothecaries stored elixirs in fractured jars, believing cracks aerated the humors. Your humors are aerated enough. Wind howls through the shack's wall gaps. A chip dislodges, plinking into the dregs with the gravitas of a sinking ship. You fish it out, sticky resin strings tethering it to your callus. Neolithic tribes used pottery shards as primitive surgical blades for trepanation. The chip's too blunt for brain surgery, but sharp enough to carve resignation. Shadows warp the bowl's profile. Its asymmetrical curves become a craggy moon in your hands. Cold numbs your palm where ceramic thins, warmth clustered around the resin-thickened base. Pompeii excavations revealed stacked bowls fused by volcanic heat, lovers' dishes melted together. You set yours apart isolations, the only combustion left here. Someone scratched initials inside the rim, JG, or maybe IC, time-worn grooves fuzzy as old vows. You wonder if they regretted not smashing it completely, leaving no relic for your stewardship. Tudor servants drank from chipped vessels to avoid stealing intact ones, a law carved in broken crockery. Your theft is existing, your crime is needing. The final sip tastes of resin and regret, an earthy bitterness no herb can mask. You tongue the largest crack, proving grounds for tomorrow's meal to colonize. 16th century sailors drank from hollowed coconuts when ship's crockery shattered nature's perfect bowls. Your nature is fissures, your perfection is persistent. Frost etches the bowl's exterior, hoarfrost claws mimicking its crackled glaze. You cradle it to your chest, letting residual heat fake a heartbeat. 20th century adhesives could have fixed this without scars. But slick polymers hate pilgrimage. Your pilgrimage is circular from hearth to table to cracked lips. Wind rattles the door, the bowl hums against your sternum in dissonant harmony. You rise, hips bumping the table. A resin flake drifts downward like miniature amber. Tomorrow it'll hold roots, or mold, or nothing. Its purpose as fluid as your own. The ladle's tin mouth hovers over his bowl, brother suspended between ladle and lip. His war stories reek of Roman siege engines, the sour tang of vinegar-soaked fire arrows. Legionaries once greased their shields with pigeon fat, slippery defense against enemy blades. Your broth holds less heroism, just turnip scraps and the ghost of last week's mutton. They marched on Antioch. He rasps, ashes shifting in his throat. Firelight warps his jawline, stretching his face into a Gaulish coin's grotesque profile. His cloak drips melted snow onto the hearthstones. Each hiss a tiny battlefield scream. You count 6 lice in his beard, conquering territories as he speaks. 1st century soldiers supposedly brewed beer in their helmets, Your guest's helmet probably holds fleas. A broth globule lands on his wrist. He licks it without breaking eye contact. Historians still argue whether Caesar's midnight river crossing was strategy or dysentery-fueled desperation. The man's pupils dilate, reflecting your fire as twin cities burning. His spoon taps the bowl's edge, Morse code for more, more, more. His story pivots to siege engines, torsion springs made from braided women's hair. Mongol riders allegedly fermented mare's milk in saddlebags, battlefield cocktails shaken by galloping. Your saddlebags, a lint-filled pocket holding 3 walnuts and a rusted hook. The ladle dips again, its tarnished belly pregnant with murky warmth. He mentions Hadrian's Wall. You imagine centurions shivering in British fog, craving your broth. 9th century Byzantine texts describe snow stew made with icicles and despair. Your version's marginally better, if only for the time sprig floating like a raft. His teeth click against the ladle, hunger overriding decorum's last stand. Firelight bends, projecting his silhouette onto the wall's soot canvas. The shadow's hands grow monstrous, reenacting some forgotten siege tower collapse. You mute a yawn. His tailies outnumber the hut's actual fleas. Charlemagne's chefs supposedly roasted songbirds' whole, crispy beaks, and all for victory feasts. Your guest's victories surviving the stew, poached roots, and all. His voice hitches describing a crucifixion detail nails driven between radius and ulna. The broth suddenly tastes of iron. Did you nick your thumb earlier? Forensic archaeologists debate Roman nail placement, clinical efficiency, or prolonged agony. Your own agony's the shack's chill, creeping up your spine like a traitorous scout. He drains the bowl. Its empty clunk echoes off the rafters. The shadow on the wall keeps talking, lips moving after his real mouth stills. 18th century sailors swore shadows held ghosts of those drowned at sea. You blink. His silhouette now wears a centurion's crested helmet. Wind howls through the door crack, extinguishing 3 firelit Macedonians mid-phalanx on the wall. He mistakes your shudder for narrative. All leans closer with wine breath grandeur. Cleopatra's fleet supposedly used cobra venom to poison enemy wells. Your wells frozen, venom's redundant when ice does the killing. And then we raised the vineyards. He whispers, a conqueror's confession. The ladle trembles not from fear, but your arms numb exhaustion. Napoleonic soldiers burned grapevines for warmth, turning terroir into temporary salvation. You've burnt better things, dried sage, love letters, the last decent spoon. His shadow suddenly stands, though the man remains slouched on the stool. The black silhouette raises a sword arm, your fire-drawn Alexander demanding more libations. You cave, pouring the dregs, while noting his real hand's tremor. Persian immortals carried concealed poison rings, a quicker end than your hospitality. Broth traces age lines on his lips, cracked fjords in a shriveled map. He claims to have marched with Belisarius, dead general's name curdling the air. 6th century Byzantine reconquests won't warm your frostbit toes tonight. You shrug. The motion dislodges a moth from your sleeve into the fire. His tail ends not with a bang. A wet cough rattling his ribs. The shadow on the wall fractures into crow shapes, dissolving into ceiling smoke. You press the ladle to his palm final piece, offering before owllight. Tiberius banned arborists from reading entrails. Prophetic tree rings discouraged battle plans. Silence falls heavy as a testudo formation. The fire pops, launching an ember onto his threadbare sleeve. He crushes it absently, another city sacked in miniature. Your reflection warps in his empty bowl, a cyclotic idol with ladle arms. He leaves when the stars hollow, taking his shadows and 6 borrowed lice. The walls blank again, soot-stained parchment, awaiting new campaigns. You spit into the fire, a petty general scorching his memoirs. Flames rise, briefly etching your own face where his had been. The slop bucket's rim bites your palm, frozen metal branding flesh through calluses. You heave, greasy broth arcs through moonlight, impacting snow with a hiss worthy of Roman bathhouse drains. Steam writhes upward, a spectral torso, dissolving into the wolf-gray sky. 300 years back, Byzantine sentries poured soup dregs beyond fortress walls. Ghost taxes paid in potato peels. Paw prints materialize within heartbeats, delicate stamps circling the steaming stain. Too small for wolves, maybe foxes, or those mangy monastery cats from the pass. Their pads leave star-shaped indentations, crushed snow glittering like St. Nicholas beard clippings. A 14th century nun's journal describes winter imps disguised as hungry stoats. You hope the imps tip well. The largest print sinks deeper alpha of this broth cult. Its shadow stretches unnaturally long, mimicking the traveler's warped silhouette from hours prior. You shiver, not from cold, but the way steam still holds a man's fading cough. Forensic historians still argue whether Viking age doorstep offerings appeased spirits or just attracted useful scavengers. Your own motives feel equally muddy: charity, habit, lazy disposal. Ice cracks beneath the scrub pines, 4-legged shadows retreating with your guilt. The puddle's edges crust over, preserving a fossil record of tonight's transaction. 17 paces back to the hut's throat, warmth bleeding through its cedar, plank larynx. You linger, savoring the clean ache of lungs filled with unsullied frost. Dawn's first knife slash splits the eastern ridgeline. Pale light reveals what darkness hid. The broth-stained snow has melted downward, creating a perfect cistern-shaped depression. At its center, a single hazelnut placed with rodent precision. Nutmeg was currency in 12th century Constantinople prisons. Is this payment or mockery? You pocket the nut, its shell still greasy from the stew. The traveler's lice probably colonized it already. Frankish kings once sentenced thieves to wear nut sacks, humiliation through absurdity. Your mittens muffle the nut's faint rattle, like a bishop's last breath in a reliquary. Inside, the hearth's corpse radiates residual lies, embers impersonating life beneath feathery ash. Your boot toe dismembers the ash dragon, its spine collapsing into a smokestack sigh. 9 generations of cast iron hunch in the fireplace, grandmother's cauldron, birthing daughter pots in an eternal sooty lineage. The threshold creaks, wind swapping the broth, stench for pine sap, and impending storms. You bar the door with a split log, its rot-softened wood oozing amber resin. Carthaginian sailors sealed hulls with similar sap, waterproofing against Mediterranean envy. Your hut's gaps persist. Let the envious wind gnash its teeth outside. At the wash basin, broth fingerprints swirl slick orca shapes in murky water. Your reflection wavers, a smudged king clutching his ladle scepter. Visigoth nobles drank from enemy skulls. Your chipped clay mug seems downright civil. Turning the nut over its surface betrays tiny gnaw marks. Agrarian tax records from plague years show peasants paid in acorns. Final insult before starvation. Floorboards whine underfoot, each step a betrayal to creaking timber vertebrae. The nut joins 3 withered apples in the larder, a still life of precarious survival. You count your kingdom's treasures, saffron threads in a walnut shell, salt-crusted butter knife, despair. Outside, the snow puddle hardens, archiving today's failings under fresh ice. By noon, it'll be just another whiteness among whitenesses. 800 years hence, glaciologists will find nut fragments, declare it ritual evidence. Fringe blogs will link it to alien crop circles. You slump against the larder eyelids, graphing the ceiling's wormhole constellations. Somewhere beyond the wattle walls, paws crackle through ice-crisped underbrush. The hazelnut thief drags its prize toward denser shadows. Let it feast. You've tasted greater bitterness on your own tongue. Sleep comes as slow as a Carthaginian siege. Each surrendered thought a brick, dismantled from your walls. In the dream, the traveler's silhouette tenders a hazelnut, its shell splitting to reveal your shriveled heart. Steam rises, forming the exact shape of your mother's disapproving lips. Her ghost says nothing, just watches you lick the broth bowl clean. Flour dust, motes hang frozen, suspended in dawn's weak glare, like the aftermath of a baker's explosion. Your knuckles meet dough, a pale belly resisting the need. Medieval monks added ground pea shells to stretch wheat supplies, their frugality fossilized in your thrusting palms. The mound sucks at your fists, alive and petulant as a milk-sodden pup. Yeast exhales sulfur, a gassy sigh trapped beneath linen wrap. You peel back the cloth, the dough's surface bubbles like toadskin. 6th century Frankish edicts banned sourdough after linking it to demon infestations. Your starter's been brewing since autumn. If there's demons here, they've earned their keep. A raisin from last summer's hall lodges under your thumbnail, sticky shrapnel from better days. You flick it into the mix. Let future archaeologists puzzle over this ritual offering. Pompeian loaves preserved in ash reveal rat hairs as common ingredients, bonus protein for the discerning plebeian. The dough folds, a 100-layer insult to purists who think crust defines character. Your elbow bumps the nut stash. 3 hazelnuts roll across the table. They pirouette, mocking your failed attempt at symmetrical scoring. Ottoman bakers carved Quranic verses into ceremonial loaves. These slashes just weep jam like clumsy confessions. Cool clay leaches heat from your lower back, the hearth's dying breath too feeble for comfort. You squat, hauling the dough bowl onto your lap. It's warmer here, though your knees protest like Carthaginian senators facing Roman envoys. Wheat chaff pokes through the linen. Medieval peasants called this god's bristle and wove it into crowns. You pluck a strand, it disintegrates into golden dandruff. The dough's pulse matches your own sluggish rhythm, drum beats from a farcical siege. Historians still argue whether circular loaves symbolized eternity or just fit better in ovens. Your creation resembles a battle-won tumor, proudly asymmetrical. You sprinkle barley flour, pale snowfall, on a tuberous landscape. Outside, crows bicker over the frozen broth, offering their black commas, punctuating the snow. One pecks at your hazelnut cache's hiding spot, beak stabbing through rotted timber. Frankish castle cooks trained ravens to steal spices from rival kitchens, feathered agents of culinary espionage. You lob a raisin, it bounces off the leader's oil-slick plumage. Medieval insult achieved. Sweat beads despite the cold, your brow salts the dough. A drop lands, quicksilver swallowed by glutinous maw. Venetian bakers once auctioned sweat-seasoned labor loaves as aphrodisiacs. You scrape the dampness back into the mass. Let no resource go unexploited. The linen shroud settles again, dough expanding in slow agony. Rising times vary, but loneliness speeds yeast, or is it the other way round? Your breath fogs the bowl, a mini-climate for this bloating universe. 12 generations of bakers. Ghosts nod approval, their expertise reduced to snow static in your periphery. Knuckles crack on the next fold, the sound of kindling, snapped for confession. You press harder, exercising the traveler's cough. Your mother's steamed frown, the nut's greasy betrayal. Dough absorbs sins better than any priest. Transubstantiation via elbow grease. Light bleeds across the table, dawn's blade finding gaps in the shutters. The dough's shadow stretches, a distorted giant on the soot-stained wall. Aztec women shaped spirit figures from amaranth dough, sacrificed them instead of children. You shape a crude rabbit, press it flat before it develops demands. Thirst claws your throat, a desert's final warning. The water jug yields one icy sip, tongue lapping at stalactite dribbles. Mongol raiders fermented mare's milk in bread dough, drunken provisions for sober conquests. Your stomach growls, conquered by mere hunger. Palm blisters burn beneath flour, dust your skin's own parchment map of toil. You tear a dough scrap, roll it into a pitted bead, strand it on frayed yarn, adding to the curtain of failed experiments. 9th century nuns wore such dough rosaries until mice devoured their prayers. Ash gusts under the door, the hearth's cremated remains, seeking resurrection. You ignore it, focus on the dough's give and take, push and yield. Salmon Nosrat was right: salt, fat, acid, heat govern all. But she never addressed the fifth element: desperation. Fingertips find a rhythm: fold, press, turn, repeat. The motion unlocks memories of your mother kneading rage into rye. Archaeologists found 3,000-year-old breadcrumbs in Anatolia, charred, but still whispering recipes across millennia. Your dough won't survive the hour. A hazelnut rolls into the flour, tracing drunken circles before collapsing. You have it with the bread knife, its insides pithy and stale. Sprinkle the crumbs like sacred debris. Let the yeast gods judge your offering. The dough's crescendo approaches, taut skin threatening rupture. You punch it down, an act both cruel and merciful. Gas escapes with a moan your own breath catches in solidarity. Linen reswaddles the lump: final rest before the oven's maw. You slump beside the dormant hearth, flour-coated and emptied. Somewhere beneath Byzantium's ruins, a baker's skeleton still cradles similar fatigue. Wind shrieks through wall gaps, a dissonant choir to your achievement. The dough rises regardless, blind ambition, triumphing over environment. You envy its simplicity. When the crows abandon their frozen vigil, you'll bake this misshapen testament. For now, let it dream of better grains, and you of butter. Flames hunch lower, sulking, as wind rams the chimney's throat. You stab the coals with an iron poker, metal screech, piercing the storm's howl. 14th century Londoners believed bad drafts carried the Black Death. They stuffed chimneys with rosemary and ratsbane. Embers spit, a Morse code of defiance against the cold. The last log splits under your boot heel, splintered oak cracks like a verdict. You pitch chunks into the hearth, each piece sacrificed to the shrinking light. Norse households kept fire watchers to tend flames through winter nights, their pay measured in singed eyelashes. Orange tongues swell licking soot-blackened bricks in short-lived triumph. Wind wails through a mouse-chewed flue, the sound of widows keening at a wake. You press closer, forearms singed by the blaze's desperate leap. Historians still argue whether Tudor chimney taxes counted hearths by fire or by smoke. Yours emits both, an ashy exhalation clawing at the dark. Sparks swarm upward, reverse snowfall, sucked into the void. One lodges in your sleeve, glowing like a drunken firefly. 18th century, French bakers baked storm loaves shaped like clenched fists, a charm against tempests. You pat out the ember your cuff wears its charred kiss. The dough bowl sweats nearby, yeast exhaling boozy promises. Heat warps its surface, a funhouse mirror reflecting your haggard blur. Moldovan folktales warn that unbaked dough attracts blizzard demons. You pull the bowl nearer. Let them come. Iron tools taunt from the wall, shovels and tongs hung like martyrs. Your palms reject their frosty bite. You stir flames with bare hands instead. A burn blossoms, bright and precise, as a samovar's stamp on skin. Tsarist kitchen boys bore such marks as badges of endurance. Wind shifts, smoke backdrafts into the room. Your eyes stream, tears salting the stew pot's crusted rim. Medieval manuscripts advised shouting obscenities at rebellious chimneys. You cough instead. The hearth relents, drawing the fumes upward, like a penitent inhaling incense. Kindling dwindles, each twig snapped with monastic economy. You eye the stool's leg, its pine heart still humming with sap. Wartime Berliners burned furniture to bake ersatz bread from sawdust and glue. The stool survives for now. Firelight paints wolves on the walls, loping shadows that outpace reality. Your boot sole smolders, stray ember melting through patched leather. A joke blooms. If the flames die, you'll just eat the dough raw. Survival garnished with food poisoning. A delicacy for future archaeologists. The storm peaks, roof beams shudder like ship masts in a squall. You feed the last splinters to the coals. Their death throws bright and brief. Dutch sailors claimed sustained heat could repel ghosts. Your hearth hosts only soot and stubbornness. Blister throbs in time with the wind, a duet of pain and pressure. You press it against the dough's cool belly, a makeshift balm. Soot drifts onto the rising mass, freckling it like cinnamon ash. 17th century bakers added soot to rye loaves for male vigor. You'll claim ignorance if questioned. Ice glazes the chimney's lip, stalactites dripping onto the embers. Steam hisses, 1,000 snakes denouncing winter's hubris. Your throat tightens, pondering how much roof that ice could crush. Roman hypocausts never contended with such nonsense, just toga-clad engineers and temperate climes. The dough overflows its bowl, yeast-drunk bubbles popping like swamp gas. You punch it down, fists sinking into glutinous quicksand. Firelight gilds the slump, a miniature sun swallowed by hungry clouds. Wind dies mid-scream, silence rushing in like floodwater. The hearths crackle now, deafening, each pop a cannon salute. You count breaths until the tempest returns. 11 seconds of counterfeit peace. Embers glow as the dough rises, twin organisms defying entropy. Your spine meets the wall, grit and splinters tattooing exhaustion. The last heat clings to your skin, a thief's kiss before dawn's arrest. Steam ribbons twist upward, carving Rorschach ghosts in the soot-stained air. Your grandmother's frown materializes, first etched by decades of disapproving soup. 17th century scullery maids polished copper pots to mirror shine, the better to watch steam for divinations. Condensation drips, each droplet warping her face into your brother's shit-eating grin. You swipe at the vapor, fingers passing through his smudged silhouette. The broth burps, releasing a leek's onion-sweet sigh. 16th century apothecaries harvested condensation from fever pots, prescribed it as memory water for senile lords. His phantom teeth glint, the same smirk he wore while swiping your first dagger. Heat paints the ceiling beams with shadow puppet battles. A boil erupts your mother's stern profile fragments into swirling mist. Historians still argue whether French resistance fighters used soup steam to pass coded messages. Her lips move soundlessly, reprimanding your knife grip like you're 12 again. Ladle trembles as you skim foam, childhood sneers rising with the scum. A carrot chunk bobs, mocking your 6th birthday's burnt oat cake. Victorian cooks believed stern faces made broth bitter. You chuck the carrot into the flames. Fog clings to your lashes, blurring the hearth into a watercolor smear. The sibling shape reforms, holding your stolen dagger behind his back. Ottoman kitchen scribes recorded recipes in steam-fogged ledger margins, ink running like guilty tears. Your fist tightens, ladle handle creaking a threat he can't hear. Cold noses your nape, shockingly real against the steam's false warmth. You spin, greeting empty air and the snickering fire. 18th century Bavarian inns hung leaks above hearths to repel familial ghosts. The broth's aroma sharpens, pungent enough to scour his smirk from the air. Wood smoke stitches itself into the vision, grandma's shawl unraveling into ash. A bubble pops, her voice seems to say, "Skim faster, girl." Tudor cookery manuals paired exact temperatures with zodiac signs. You never did learn your rising house. Your exhale swirls with the steam, tangling both faces into nonsense shapes. The pot lid rattles, a prisoner demanding release. Dig site archaeologists found Bronze Age stew pots sealed with ancestral carvings, lids shaped like scowling elders. You lift it anyway, rebellion steaming your chin raw. Leek fibers cling to the spoon, translucent veins mapping forgotten arguments. A hiss builds, the ghost of mother's critique about oversalted bisque. Napoleonic field kitchens used bayonets as soup skimmers. You jab the ladle like a saber. Dawn's first light bleeds through the smoke hole. The vapor thins, faces retreating into tomorrow's broth pot. Aztec steam baths doubled as confessionals, sins whispered to boiling stones. Your sleeve wipes the last condensation, smeared visages fading into woolen threads. Fire coughs its final ember, a punctuation mark for vanished ghosts. You inhale leek-scented air, the realness of it clutching your ribs. All ancestral kitchens had these moments, brief collisions of vapor and venom. The ladle rests, its bowl holding nothing but your warped reflection. Claws scritch-scratch above the fire's dying wheeze, rhythm syncopated with the pot's last gurgles. Your neck cranes upward, rafters creak under the weight of unseen marauders. Medieval monasteries bred fat kitchen rats on purpose, their roasted haunches considered Lenten fare in lean winters. A soot clump plops into the broth. You fish it out with resigned expertise. The ceiling's shadowed latticework shivers, tiny eyes glint like blackened peppercorns. You tear a bread heel, stale crust flakes onto your apron. 16th century Hungarian bakers laced rat bait with ground glass, folklore claims. It made their chimney sweeps sparkle. The morsel arcs upward, 5 airborne somersaults, before vanishing into darkness. Gnawing resumes, an insolent critique of your throw's trajectory. Your boot heel taps the hearthstones, 3 short stomps in retaliation. Historians still argue whether Renaissance rat catchers trained owls or just lied on their tax rolls. Ash drifts down, gray powder snows onto the pot's scummed surface. Something splashes. You whirl toward the wash basin, expecting cheeky whiskers. Only moonlight floats there, rippling across leftover dishwater like liquid mercury. Victorian pest controllers sold vermifuge candles, claiming to smoke rats out with cinnamon fumes. House fires tripled that December. Your knife hovers, reflected blade quivering in the disturbed water. A dry squeak erupts behind the flour sacks, mockery in triplets. You lob another crust. This one lodges in a cobweb like a woolly barnacle. Aztec telatony supposedly kept jeweled rats as palace pets, their silken leashes braided with human hair. The rafters fall silent, too silent, the hush of predators recalculating. Broth sloshes as you hoist the pot, one final pour into your chipped bowl. 8-legged shadows dart between ceiling beams, your spine prickles at the scuttledin. Wild Bill Hickok's last meal allegedly included rat stew, but showmen added that detail post-mortem for flair. Porcelain warms your palms, heat chasing the rodents from your thoughts. Something lands soft behind you, pause, pattering across flagstones with deliberate theatrics. You don't turn dignity demands ignoring this L. Yeah, SN, Aya SVAL, Achayeri. Tudor chimney sweeps, believed rats, stole their luck. Hence the nail-studded broom handles. The bowl's rim meets your lips. Broth hides the tang of soot and rodent hubris. Teeth click near the kindling pile, auditioning for a horror tableau. You slurp louder, passive aggression, simmering beneath each gulp. Napoleonic soldiers reportedly shot rats for sport, until the rodents started stealing gunpowder to retaliate. A crumb hits your shoulder. The aerial assault escalates. Moonlight catches the culprit mid-leap, a blur of matted fur and entitlement. Your spoon flicks a pea. It pings off the chimney flue. 17th century Dutch painters used rat-stale brushes. FOR Chinese letter details. Rembrandt's night watch whiskers glow under infrared. The invader chitters, a sound like walnuts crushed under wagon wheels. You cradle the bowl closer, steam fogging your spectacles into blindness. More claws descend, rope-thick tails whip through the smoke's blue tendrils. Archaeologists found 84 mummified rats in Hadrian's bathhouse, stuffed with figs and imperial resentment. Blindness becomes armor. You sip louder, radiating peasant defiance. The The fire exhales its last warm breath, ash flakes settling like a truce. Rustling peaks then retreats, fading into the wall's marrow. Historians still argue whether Viking explorers ate roof rats or just respected worthy adversaries. Your empty bowl clinks, a dinner bell for the disgraced. Paw prints circle the hearth dainty as debutante slippers dipped in soot. You snap a twig, dry crack echoing like a flintlock's warning shot. Ming Dynasty rat recipes recommended braising with lily buds to soften the bitterness of stolen grain. Shadows freeze, then melt into cracks like spilled shadow. Your knuckle brushes something warm, the tossed crust rests on the kneading table. Bite marks crown its edges, precise as papal seals. Salem's baker sold witch-proof rat cakes before his arrest. They found 13 tails in his apron. You pocket the offering trophy or threat, depending on dawn's disposition. Embers darken. The kitchen shrinks into cold reality. Above, the ceiling creaks, a final squeak dripping with condescension. You lean back, spoon tapping Morse code on the empty pot. All Outpost hearths have their unspoken treaties yours, just nibbles the edges before vanishing. Your thumbnail skims the broth's cooling surface. Grease swirls into topographies of unvisited coasts. A time sprig bobs past, purple blossoms splayed like drowned spiders. 9th century Egyptian embalmers packed burial nostrils with thyme, its pungency masking decay during 70-day mummifications. You hook the stem, water beads trembling on fuzzy leaves. Damp flowers stain your cuticle yellow-gray, a hue alchemists called mortality's patina. The herb's musk punches through residual wood smoke, pine resin, and burning sugar. 18th century French courtiers wore thyme sachets between their breasts, believing it purified scandalous whispers into harmless vapor. You twirl the sprig, showering the hearthstones with dying petals. Something crunches underfoot, a rat-dropped hazelnut shell from autumn's forgotten stash. Your boot grinds it finer, improvised pot scrub for tomorrow's burnt pot. Historians still argue whether Roman vomitoriums sprinkled thyme oil to mask, well, you snort. The sound startles a moth from its chimney niche. Moonlight slants through steam residue on copper pans. The thyme's shadow stretches like interrogation fingers. Renaissance plague doctors stuffed their beaks with thyme and cloves, a fragrant barrier against miasma's kiss. Your pinky traces the pollen smear. It clings like stubborn sin. Frost creeps under the door, thin blades of cold licking your ankles. You tuck the wilted herb behind your ear petals, tickling temple veins. Edwardian spiritualists steeped thyme tea to commune with fallen soldiers, their seance tables reeking of poultry seasoning, fireweed, and occupation. Even herbs can't escape dual purposes. The broth pot sweats its final droplets, each plink echoing in the soot-thick silence. Your sleeve smears the counter, streaking grease into a comet's tail. Aztec midwives burned thyme with copal resin, their smoke carrying newborns, first cries to goddess Kotlikue. Ash drifts. One fleck lands on your tongue like charred forgiveness. Something moves in the wash basin. Time leaves pirouette without your command. You lean closer, water reflects your herb-crowned silhouette, warped by ripples. Medieval scribes inked capital letters with time-infused dye. Its antioxidants preserved manuscripts better than gallnut solutions. The knowledge tastes bitter, another triumph lost to moldering folios. The hearth's last warmth retreats, marrow-deep chill colonizing the room. You pluck the sprig free, crushed petals snow onto the dough bench. Qing dynasty concubines rubbed thyme oil into their hairpins. Poison checks required 16 mouse fatalities per vial. Your laugh hangs visible, a ghost of amusement, escaping frozen lips. Teeth chatter a staccato rhythm yours, not the rafters' usual suspects. The time stem snaps between blue-tinged fingers. Sap oozes over knuckle wrinkles. Ottoman coffee houses buried time under doorsteps, a charm against Java-induced gossip. You pocket the broken pieces, their scent seeping through linen like confession. Moonlight abandons the window, dawn's approach measured in graying shadows. Cold kneads your shoulders, an insistent masseuse with ice-caked hands. Victorian mental asylums prescribed time baths for hysterical congestion of the womb, steam peeling wallpaper in medicinal curls. You inhale remnant warmth from the empty pot, a fading memory of nourishment. The herb's fragrance lingers, sharpness mellowed by hours of simmering. Your tongue finds a petal stuck to a molar floral bitterness sharp as unkept vows. Napoleonic soldiers stuffed thyme in their boots, crushed leaves, delaying trench foot by 3 extra miles. The taste persists, an echo of root systems clinging to stony earth. Somewhere beyond frozen fields, wolves harmonize with the wind's mournful slide. You press time-stained fingers to the hearth's dead bricks. One spark might resurrect everything. 11th century, Welsh bards chewed thyme before recitals. Its oils lubricating lies into legend. The stones stay cold, your hand withdraws, patterned with ash fossils. Dawn leaks through smoke-blackened rafters. The time in your pocket weighs nothing and everything. Your breath feathers outward, a final visible sigh before the world wakes. Historians still argue whether Byzantine emperors poisoned rivals with thyme tinctures, or just wished they had. You cross the threshold, carrying winter's kiss into the naked morning. Your wrist twists, the spoon handle bites into a fresh callus. Tarnished tin screeches against the kettle's iron flank, a sound felt in molars. Soup clings to the bend, where last winter's avalanche dented the metal, history preserved in cookware. 16th century English apothecaries stirred poisons with pure silver spoons, believing tarnish betrayed venom's kiss. This one's too poor for such drama, its pockmarked surface hoarding every failed stew. Dregs swirl into whirlpools, oat clusters, and carrot ghosts dancing their final jig. You scrape the kettle's curved belly, scritch skritch, scritch, echoing off sooted rafters. Byzantine emperors used spoons as diplomatic bribes. A silver one bought 3 Albanian turncoats in 1021 CE. Your grip slips, the handles patchy pewter blisters under sweat. A drop spatters your boot. It hardens instantly into edible amber. You lick the spoon's back, charred onion, and regret. Medieval Cistercian nuns traded spoonfuls of honey as currency, 6 dips to absolve a lie. The taste lingers, too sweet for the bitterness it purchased. Frost gnaws through your soles, flagstones inherited from some bankrupt earl's summer home. You crouch closer to the hearth, kettle's breath fogging your lashes. 19th century Arctic explorers ate their spoons. After rations ran thin, caribou fat and desperation seasoning the metal. Your teeth test the handle. It yields a metallic shriek. Firelight glints off the bowl's only smooth patch, a thumbnail's worth of reflection. You tilt it. Your warped face stares back, crowned by chimney smoke. Mogul chefs fashioned spoons from dried mango peels, each meal imprinted with citrus's memory. The image ripples gone when broth coats the surface again. Rotations slow, gruel laps at the spoon like tar. Your blistered pinky hooks through the handle's decorative hole, a useless flourish for a peasant tool. Historians still argue whether Viking spoon runes were dinner prayers or invasion plans. You trace the dent, its edges sharp as runic carvings. The hearth spits a final cinder. It dies midair, trailing sulfur stench. You stand too fast, spoon clutched like a scepter in stiff fingers. Edo period geishas balanced spoons on their noses to master ceremonial stillness. One wobble meant whipped souls. Your arm trembles, the utensil dips, surrendering its clot of gruel. Shadows stretch. The spoon's silhouette becomes a sundial on the flour-dusted table. Cold tightens your nape, a noose of midnight drafts and fatigue. Pompeian kitchens had spoon rests shaped like phalluses. Archaeologists still debate the blessing versus bawdry. You snort, fogging the bowl until your reflection vanishes. Dawn's first blush seeps under the door, the spoon abandoned beside crusted bowls. Your palm presses the kettle, residual warmth leaches into frozen skin. French Revolution prisoners filed spoons into lockpicks, their porridge eaten with bare, trembling hands. The metal cools, another day's story etched into its curves. Wind riffles through the larder, empty sacks applaud in feeble unison. You pocket the spoon. Its weight sags your right side like a guilty secret. Edwardian orphans polished cutlery with their sleeves, a character-building exercise that left linens irretrievably stained. The handle pokes your thigh, a persistent itch as you face the frost-cracked yard. Sunrise glares off icicles. The spoon winks once from its hiding place. You exhale, your breath erases it in a veil of steam. Flagstones bite through patched wool. Your kneecaps grind against their glacial indifference. Porcelain radiates heat. The bowl's curve imprints itself on your thighs like a brand. 14th century peasants stuffed hay between floor cracks, improvised insulation against stone's toothache chill. You got no such mercy. This kitchen favors hardship like a masochistic lover. Firelight glimmers in the bowl's cracks, veins of gold in milky ceramic. Steam ghosts upward, caressing your chin with thyme and charred onion. Historians still argue whether Bronze Age hearth slabs were ritual altars or just really fancy foot warmers. Your pinky dips into the broth. Heat blooms under the nailed. Blisters whisper protests as you cradle the bowl closer, a waltz of pain and solace. Wind creeps under the door. It nips at your spine with rodent teeth. You hunch tighter, a human comma, punctuating the hearth's amber growl. Edwardian scullery maids tucked heated cobblestones under their aprons, a desperate cheat against chilblains. The bowl's warmth retreats, leaving behind a phantom throb against your lap. 3 gulps remain, each sip a truce between hunger and burnt tongue. Broth coats your throat, a viscous armor against the night's sharp edges. Archaeologists found 7 Mycenaean soup bowls buried with warriors, their handles shaped like lion paws. Yours lacks such grandeur. Its chipped rim fits the notch in your lip. Flagstone patterns swim in your vision, each fissure a map of dead-end trails. You trace them with a toenail chalky mortar, dusting the floor like first snow. Tudor bakers kneaded dough on these stones, their knuckles leaving dents, still faintly visible. Your palm slaps the spot, cold shock jarring wrist to shoulder. A carrot scrap lodges in your molar, savory sweet rebellion against dental drudgery. Tongue battles the fragment. It's a 30-second war, ending in messy triumph. Flemish hunger artists claimed chewing 1 turnip peel could sustain a man till Lent. You spit the pulp into the fire. It sizzles like a tiny heretic. Embers tattoo shadows on the walls, a flickering bestiary of wolves and wraiths. The empty bowl weighs nothing now. Its absence leaves your legs exposed. 18th century French decadents drank chocolate from human skulls, a fad fueled by bad philosophy and better tax evasion. You set the dish aside, its smooth belly reflecting the dying hearth. Dawn licks the eastern window, a hesitant guest, unsure of its welcome. Frost patterns fractalize across glass. Frozen lace mocks your tattered hem. Mongol riders fermented mares milk in saddlebags. The jostling journey their only stove. You rise, knees crackling like kindling, and press the warm dish to your sternum. Chill air pricks your nostrils, each breath a needle dipped in menthol. Flagstones bear witness, their stony silence a ledger of vanished feet. Victorian psychics held seances with thermal vessels, claiming hot soup bowls channeled dead chefs. You snort, your reflection blurs in the porcelain's last oily sheen. First light gilds the spice rack, cinnamon sticks, transformed into gilded bone shards. The bowl cools rapidly, its borrowed warmth stolen back by dawn's crisp hunger. You rub the dish's foot, a habit left by its long-dead potter. Maybe their thumbs knew this curve better than any lover's jaw. Ice feathers bloom across the window, their stems thickening by the breath. Somewhere beyond the pines, a wolf choruses the fading stars. Your knees creak upright, the flagstones sigh as pressure lifts. Medieval physicians prescribed stone sleep for frostbite, lying naked on heated rocks until blisters burst. You'll stick with wool and stubbornness, the breakfast of lifelong amateurs. The bowl clinks into the wash basin, its protest drowned by bruised clouds. Your palm lingers, fingertips reddened by heat's last stand. Daybreak sharpens the world, turning breath into visible regret, frost into diamonds. Cold knees bend again, ready to dance the same battered waltz. Night's full belly presses against the outpost, its weight smothering the last embers in the hearth. You tilt your head. A sliver of moonlight stabs through the soot-stained smoke hole. 3rd century Roman bathhouses engineered similar apertures, though theirs aimed to vent steam, not starlight. Ash moats swirl, ephemeral galaxies born from the day's burnt offerings. Your spine cracks as you lean back, flagstones imprinting their grid onto your shoulder blades. A cobweb shivers above, strung with decades of grease and dust. Medieval tinkerers believed such grime held prophecies, if read by lunar light. You squint, the streaks resolve into meaningless smudges, like a drunkard's star chart. Cold nips your earlobes. The moonbeam's silver offers no warmth, only geometry. Historians still argue whether Viking longhouse smoke holes doubled as solstice markers. Your smoke hole just leaks, a flawed sundial for insomniac spirits. You raise a hand, palm slicing the light into 5 shadow knives. Dust adheres to sweat-damp skin, constellations migrate to your lifeline. An Elizabethan rogue once sold moonash tonics, claimed they cured melancholia by aligning bodily humors. Your fist closes, crushing the illusion into gritty nothingness. The beam brightens, clouds parting to reveal the cold pupil of night. Wind combs through the hole, whistling a tune that vibrates your molars. 17th century Dutch sailors mimicked this sound with glass pipes, called it Storm's aria. Your jaw tenses, the note resonates in your sinuses like swallowed lightning. Ember glow fades, replaced by the moon's surgical glare, etching the kitchen bones. Copper pots dangle their bellies puckered like mouths mid-scream. You kick a stool into the light, its legs cast elongated prison bars. 8 generations of cooks wore grooves in its seat, their ghosts still warm the wood. Perching gingerly, you crane your neck, smoke stains bloom Rorschach patterns overhead. Victorian phrenologists would diagnose you with atavistic tendencies based on that slouch. Your vertebrae protest, a xylophone of pops ascending your spine. The moonbeam pivots, its edge now dissecting a forgotten onion on the counter. Papery skin glows translucent, revealing embryonic layers coiled tight as a child's fist. 16th century herbalists drew mandrakes under full moons, believing lunar rays amplified their screams. This onion stays mute, its silence more unsettling than any root's cry. Ash continues its dance, swirling like snow in a reverse snow globe. You inhale sharply, particulates coat your tongue with the taste of dead fires. Edwardian chimney sweeps chewed charcoal to purify breath corrupted by urban miasmas. Your cough echoes, harsh bark bouncing off cold mortar. The moonbeam flickers, clouds regathering their woolen armies. Teeth chatter rhythm, syncopated against the shutter's a rhythmic flap. You massage your temples, fingertips tracing the paths of old frostbite scars. Arctic explorers rubbed gunpowder on frozen digits. The burn supposedly restored circulation. Your thumbs move clockwise, an instinct inherited from some fire-worshipping ancestor. Darkness returns. The smoke hole blinks shut like a draconian eye. Retinas cling to afterimages. Phantom moonash spirals in the void. Mongol shamans inhaled smoke to see the sky's bones their visions, guiding nomadic roots. You see only the simmering dark and the faint smear of your own breath. The stool creaks as you stand, its complaint louder than the wind. Candle stubs huddle in a clay dish, melted into a communal wax puddle. Napoleonic soldiers rendered fat from corpses to fuel trench lanterns, a fact best forgotten. You strike steel on flint, sparks fizzle against numb fingertips. When flame finally catches, its orange seems vulgar after the moon's pure silver. You shield your eyes, irises contracting like startled sea creatures. The beam is gone, leaving the smoke hole as just another wound in the roof. 34 bricks make its circumference. You count twice to be certain. Fatigue drags at your eyelids, each blink heavier than a blacksmith's anvil. Prussian sentries faced execution for sleeping on watch, their insomnia enforced by amphetamine-laced coffee. You've no such luxury, just stubbornness and the fear of freezing mid-dream. The candle gutters, its light too frail to cast proper shadows. Pale tendrils reappear dawn. No moonlight, resurrected by the cloud's slow exodus. It climbs your left leg now, a luminous serpent inching toward your heart. Renaissance poisoners favored lunar-lit toxins, believed darkness diluted their potency. Your pulse quickens, irrational fear fluttering beneath the ribs. Ash motes settle their dance, ended by some unseen conductor's downbeat. The kitchen holds its breath. Even the mice pause their midnight salvage. You exhale slowly. Steam curls upward, briefly joining the smoke hole's exodus. The moon slips away, taking its scalpel beam to some other wound. First true dawn stains the east pink, seeping into night's gaping mouth. Your joints creak upright, a marionette tugged by solar strings. The smoke hole stares empty again, just a hole where mystery briefly lived. You touch the counter, wood warmed by light's return, indifferent to what it illuminates. You scavenge the sink's murky water, fingertips brushing a spoon sunk beneath onion skins. Tarnish obscures its handle until a moonbeam strikes the metal. Crude letters surface, JMK worn smooth by a decade of soup-stirring palms. Roman children carved practice letters into wax tablets, their homework melted each afternoon. These grooves feel deeper, as if the child pressed harder, willing permanence. You turn it sideways, the initials warp into mountain ranges under candlelight. 19th century archaeologists found doll-sized swords in Viking graves, debating if they were toys or ritual items. Your thumb skims the J, its crossbar eroded to a ghostly whisper. Historians still argue whether Norman squires carved their masters' shields or their own daydreams. This feels private, a secret between the spoon and whoever outgrew it. Grease clings to the engravings, filling each letter's valley like fossilized sap. You pick at it with a thumbnail, ancient grime flaking onto the counter. Mesopotamian scribes used beer to clean clay tablets, spit being too precious in the desert. Your tongue darts out old instinct, but the tarnish tastes only of metal and lac. The spoon's bowl winks, a convex mirror warping your reflection into a cyclops grin. 17th century street vendors sold distortion glasses to aristocrats craving carnival laughs. Your stretched face stares back, a stranger wearing your exhaustion like ill-fitting armor. JMK might have done the same, giggling at this funhouse version of their childhood cheeks. Wind sneaks under the door, a draft riffles your hair as you squint. The handle's end reveals more tiny hatch marks scratched near the grip. 5 notches, then 3, then 7. Ottoman scholars tallied prayer counts on rosary beads. But this feels playful, a game scored in soup servings. You imagine a child's voice. That's how many times I stirred without splashing. Candle wax pools around the spoon, amber resin preserving this moment in brittle lace. Pompeii excavations revealed snack stalls with etched countertops, regulars marking tabs in charcoal. These notches lack commercial intent, just the urgent math of a kid measuring growth. Your pinky aligns with the shallowest groove, the hand that made it barely spanned your smallest finger. A mouse skitters past, its shadow sharp as a woodcut against the floorboards. You half expect the spoon to twitch, to tap out some rodent Morse code. Renaissance grimoires described utensils enchanted to communicate with vermin, a housekeeper's nightmare. The mouse sniffs the air, discards this relic for a crust behind the flower bin. Dawn strengthens, sunlight disinfecting the spoon's history into mundanity. You rub the handle, warm now, alive with your own fingerprints. Edwardian orphans traded engraved buttons as currency, each scratch representing debts or promises. These letters resist barter, their gravity, pulling you into JMK, vanished world. The spoon clatters into the drying rack. Its song echoes in the empty pot. You linger, palm upturned, still feeling the ghost of those eradicated grooves. Somewhere, a grown JMK might lift a teacup, unaware of the artifact they left behind. Steam rises, carving condensation hieroglyphs that mean nothing, and everything, and nothing again. You lift the ladle, its bowl blackened from 100 forgotten boils. Moonlight slips through the smoke hole, transforming tarnish into a night sky in miniature. Orion winks up at you, 3 stars clumped like barley grains in the constellation's belt. Phoenician sailors steered by those pinpricks, their cargo ships heavy with Tyrian dye and desperation. Tilting the handle spills starlight into the hearth, a streaking comet of liquid silver. The metal warms in your palm, an echo of Roman bathhouses, where mirrors focused sunlight to kindle sacred fires. You snort. This ladle could have roasted a dormouse given enough patience and a cloudless sky. Fingerprints mar the cosmic display, your own oils smudging Rigel and Beetlejuice into a smeared dipper. Medieval mystics believed polishing silver under a new moon trapped celestial guidance in the metal. This spoon's patina suggests generations ignored that advice. Every scratch, a rebellion against astral pretensions. A crack bisects Sirius, the dog star split by a hairline fracture older than your grandfather. Historians still argue whether Viking navigators used sunstones to find Greenland or just really loved shiny minerals. You tap the flaw, half expecting a howl to escape the damaged star. The ladle's curve exaggerates your cheekbones, giving your reflection the gaunt nobility of a Flemish portrait. You stick out your tongue. The gesture stretches into a grotesque, shimmering banner. 16th century funhouse mirrors amused nobility. But this feels crueler, peeling back exhaustion's veil without permission. Draft stirs the embers, ashes rise to meet their celestial twins in the ladle's bowl. For a breath, it's a snow globe, flakes swirling around your warped silver universe. Ottoman stargazers charted comet paths using dishes of mercury, their reflections steadier than choppy Mediterranean waters. Your knuckle brushes the rim, sending ripples through the Crab Nebula. The real stars blur overhead, their light diluted by smoke and eye strain. Archaeologists unearthed Mesopotamian ladles etched with zodiac symbols, though none can prove they weren't just doodles by underappreciated cooks. A log shifts, its collapsed guts, Orion's torso in the ladle's depths. Splinters of starlight quiver on the broth's skin, ephemeral as the sparks devouring cedar in the hearth. You remember Hawaiian navigators steering by Maui's fishhook constellation, its curve mirrored in the way your wrist arches now. Grease floats atop the broth, a galaxy of fat spiraling in the ladle's cosmos. Renaissance mapmakers called such blobs stella maris, marking them on charts to denote safe harbors. This particular nebula would guide no one. Its coastline shifts, with every draft sneaking under the door. Frost creeps across the ladle's handle, crystallizing into a comet's icy tail along the grip. You cradle it like a vial of captured aurora borealis, cold seeping into your calluses. Victorian scientists once charged admission to view electrified stardust in vacuum tubes. 19th century snake oil with better PR. A drop falls from the ladle's tip, star soup, returning to the mundane below. It sizzles, brief rebellion against ember heat before surrendering to steam. The Natchez tribe cooked venison under Orion's gaze, believing his belt tightened around successful hunts. You wonder if he approves of root vegetables. Shadows erode the silver sky, dawn leeching magic from the ladle's scratched theater. Your reflection sharpens a stranger's face, replacing godlings and astral brine. Yet, when you blow across the bowl, the last star trembles like a tear, refusing to fall. Your thumb grinds the pestle, crushed seeds release a vaporous sigh. It smells like forgotten armor iron and elderberry wine left to sour. Medieval monks wrote of mists that parted the veil, though none mentioned the sinus burn. The mortar's ridges bite your palm, each groove a memory of who carved it. Crusaders carried coriander to mask gangrene, their crusade against stench more persistent than holy vows. You stir clockwise, the same motion used in Salem to banish spirits from butter churns. Smoke curls into a thorny crown above the mortar. Victorian mediums swore Vervaine's smoke revealed ghosts. Yours just reveals a need for ventilation. A cough rattles your ribs, the sound of a poorly hinged coffin lid. Petals stick to your wrist, their violet hue deepening as broth steam moistens them. Aztec surgeons used marigold poultices to seal wounds, and occasionally psychotropic daisies for patient compliance. You peel one off, its silhouette a tiny stingray floating toward oblivion. Historians still argue whether Babylonian beer recipes included thyme as flavoring or accidental contamination. Your addition is intentional. This broth needs all the defiance it can muster. The mixture bubbles, a tar-like ooze whispering of swamps and witches' brews. Elizabethan gardeners believed nightshade could unlock doors if placed in keyholes at moonrise. This knowledge feels less useful than the spoon you're scrubbing for the third time. A draft shivers the fumes into grasping tendrils. One brushes your cheek like a scorned lover's sigh. Mongol horsemen wore garlic amulets to repel evil spirits and possibly each other. You wave away the memory and the lingering stench of historical body odor. When the last grain dissolves, silence pools in the mortar's hollow, a pause before winter's next gambit. Your eyelids dip, weighted by the ghosts of 100 herbalists nodding off at their benches. The fire crackles its approval as your chin meets your kneecap, dreams steeped in peppercorns and surrender. A stray ember pops, its crimson spark orbiting the mortar like a miniature Mars. Mayan astronomers tracked the red planet's path, predicting wars through its sanguine glow. Your war is with the snores threatening to topple you into the hearth. The pestle slips, clattering against the mortar's edge in a discordant gong. Byzantine nuns rang bronze bowls to signal prayer hours, their echoes stretching across foggy cloisters. Your ears ring in solidarity, a high-pitched hymn to sleep deprivation. Seed dust powders your sleeve, ochre streaks mimicking Phoenician dye vats glimpsed in murals. Tyrian purple required endless seashells and patience, qualities you lack as dawn's glare insults your corneas. Squinting, you fumble for the curtain linen stiff with decades of grease and indecision. An ant marches across the table, its cargo a crumb 3 times its size. Aesop's fables never mentioned the real struggle storage jars with ill-fitting lids and midnight raids. You grant clemency, tossing the crumb into the flames as a smoky peace offering. The final sip scorches your tongue, punishment for ignoring Newton's laws of thermal patience. 18th century coffeehouses boasted devil's brew that kept clients awake for days. Your brew could tranquilize a buffalo. Blinking at the empty mortar, you wonder if hibernation counts as time travel. Your pinky traces a crack in the clay, an exile's map of dried riverbeds. Persian alchemists stored quicksilver in such vessels, chasing immortality between the cracks. All you've trapped is the ghost of a sneeze and yesterday's futility. Ash settles on the mortar's rim, gray snow on a miniature mountain range. Tibetan monks meditated on similar vistas, finding enlightenment in grains of sand. You find a splinter in your thumb and the sudden urge to nap. The last ember winks out, taking with it the pretense of productivity. Your elbow slides into a puddle of lukewarm broth, an undignified baptism for garments already stained with resignation. Somewhere, a Renaissance herbalist clucks their tongue, or maybe it's just the rats. Your breath hitches, steam coils around your face like a lover stealing warmth. Eyelids flutter, a moth's wings batting against the dim glow of dwindling coals. 17th century samurai practiced kekujo breathing to calm nerves before battle. Your version involves wheezing into a soup-stained sleeve. The pot burbles, a wet, guttural chorus to your staggered inhales. Each exhale merges with the vapor, twin currents tangled in the draft from the cracked window. Tudor chimney sweeps believed breath could guide lost souls home. Yours just guides a fly into the broth. Palms flatten against the table, the wood warped from decades of spilled wine and indecision. Your spine curves like a birch bent under snow, the universal posture of midnight kitchen defeats. Neolithic cooks left offerings in hearths to please breath spirits. You leave a carrot stub and a yawn. Steam fogs your spectacles. The world softens into smudged charcoal lines. A sneeze builds, rudely derailing the rhythm you'd syncopated with the simmer. Medieval plague doctors stuffed masks with herbs to cleanse corrupted air and apparently trigger allergies. The ladle trembles, its handle slick with condensed ambition. You blow across the broth's surface. Ripples erase your bleary reflection. 17th century midwives blew into mothers' mouths to share breath strength, a technique now reserved for resuscitating campfires. Historians still argue whether Incan warrior whispers could truly carry across mountain valleys. Your whispers carry peas to the pot's bottom, a culinary defeat scored in legume code. Fingertips graze the ladle's belly. Tarnished silver wears thinner than your resolve. A bubble pops. Its demise echoes like a tiny cannon in the silence. Victorian scientists tried bottling essence of yawn to cure insomnia. You've brewed an entire cauldron of it. Your shoulders slump, fabric catching on the stool's splintered edge. A hiccup escapes, the broth answers with a wet gurgle. Byzantine nuns recited psalms in sync with bread ovens, your mantras, just the kettle's asthmatic wheeze. Knuckles crack, a percussive accent to the fire's dying sputters. The scent shifts, burnt thyme, overtones masking yesterday's failed stew attempt. Mongol messengers chewed licorice root to steady their breath during desert rides. You settle for choking on smoke. The chimney coughs. Ash flakes spiral like charred snow onto the hearthstone. Your sigh dislodges them, gray petals fleeing an invisible storm. Aztec priests inhaled sacred vapors to commune with jaguar gods. You're communing with the need for a napkin. Steam licks your collarbone, a damp accusation of neglected laundry. You swipe at the moisture, sleeve emerging smelling of rosemary and resignation. Renaissance alchemists wrote of breath harmonizing with elemental humors. Yours harmonizes with the snores of a barn cat. The ladle dips, broth laps at its bowl like a tide retreating. Blurred vision turns carrots into amorphous blobs, a Rorschach test for the chronically soused. Edwardian nurses placed steaming bowls under beds to draw out fever. Tonight, it's drawing out your will to stand. A draft snakes under the door, toppling a garlic braid into the ashes. You lurch to catch it, knee meeting the table leg with a hollow thunk. Ancient Greek athletes rubbed mint on their chests to deepen lung capacity. You rub your bruise and curse the dark. The clock's ticking syncs with the pot's glug, a metronome for this orchestra of fatigue. Your forehead meets the table, wood grain, imprints promising tomorrow's peculiar tan line. Shang dynasty cooks timed porridge by counting their breaths. You've lost count at why. Embers shrink, their crimson hearts fading to ashen tombs. Your next breath tastes of charred leeks and cosmic indifference. Ottomans believed exhaling on coffee grounds could reveal the future. Yours predicts dishpan hands and existential dread. The final bubble bursts, its sound cue to admit defeat. You rise, joints popping like corn kernels in a dry pan. Burgundian monks synchronized chant rhythms. With brewing beer, your shuffle harmonizes with the mice's escape plans. As the last wisp of steam dissolves, your exhale hangs alone, a pale flag of surrender. Somewhere, a medieval herbalist's ghost nods in solidarity. Or maybe it's just the dough sagging in its bowl. The hearth exhales its final breath, embers collapsing into gray memory. Your knuckle brushes the pot's flank, still radiating stolen heat through centuries-old clay. Charlemagne ordered his palace ashes scattered on icy roads for traction. Yours just frosts the windowsill. A coal fractures, its death rattle echoing Mongol signal fires that once lit the Silk Road. You flex your palm against the warmth, skin drinking residual comfort like sun-baked stones. Medieval Welsh cooks believed cold pots could curse households. Yours sits smugly innocent in the gloom. Ash motes drift, forming transient constellations above the dead fire. Your thumbnail picks resin from the ladle's handle, 8 generations of repairs, hardening into amber waves. Historians still argue whether Byzantine eternal flames used asbestos wicks or just clever attendants. The chimney's murmur fades, leaving your ears ringing with absence. You cradle the pot like a sleeping child, its curved belly imprinting your tunic with ghostly warmth. 18th century Parisian bakers slept alongside their ovens to safeguard residual heat and probably fleas. Frost paints the cauldron's shadow on the floor, a black lake rimmed in hoarfrost. Your socked foot nudges the hearthstone, still radiating faint defiance against winter's siege. Tudor alchemists swore ashes from Yule logs could render men fireproof. Tonight's batch seems content as a foot warmer. Wind winds through the smoke hole, a dissonant duet with your stomach's growl. The pot relinquishes its heat by degrees, each minute stealing summer's last hostage from your grip. Pompeii's bakeries kept communal stewpots simmering for night watchmen and volcano victims. Your spine uncurls, vertebrae protesting like unoiled hinges in a haunted mansion. Cold seeps upward from flagstones, a creeping reminder of mortality and poor insulation. Mughal emperors cooled jewel-encrusted goblets in Himalayan snow. You warm chapped hands on earthenware. A mouse scritches near the grain sack, its tiny claws keeping better rhythm than your heartbeat. You pretend not to notice, granting this thief one night's sanctuary from the frost. Edwardian scientists debated whether cooked food retained vital essence. The rodent votes yes, with every pilfered crumb. The last heat fades, clay reverting to its native chill. Your palm lingers anyway, pressing until the burn threatens numbness. Ottoman coffee, servers trained for years to gauge cup warmth by fingertip calluses. Your expertise begins and ends with soup. Moonlight slants through smoke-stained windows, transforming ash drifts into mercury tides. You trace a furrow through the gray powder, a child's game rewriting Carthage's destruction in miniature. 17th century Kyoto tea masters prized ash patterns for their rituals. Yours vaguely resembles a duck, teeth chatter, an involuntary cadence to the shivering dark. You rise, knees popping like T-H-E Chinese letter, Japanese letter, Chinese letter. Matsu no Kai in winter storms. Mongol shamans filled ceremonial bowls with snowmelt and campfire ashes. Your ceremonial bowl holds onion skins and regret. The empty pot gapes upward, its mute accusation thicker than any stew. You drag it to the sink, iron clanging against stone like a drunkard's bell. Roman bathhouses piped hypocaust ashes into dye vats. Yours await a less glamorous dawn. Wind gusts, rattling shutters in mocking applause for your departure. You pause at the threshold, one hand frozen on the icy latch. Historians still argue whether Egyptian beer brewers used hearth ashes for flavor or just bad sanitation. Cold air slaps your cheeks, a bracing reprimand for lingering. Behind you, the hearth's corpse radiates only memories and the faint musk of scallions. You cross the courtyard, each step cracking ice into a mosaic of fractured moonlight. Somewhere beyond the pines, a wolf's howl chases your shadow. The pot waits patient as sediment in a long-dead volcano for morning's reluctant return. The hearth's last sigh lingers, embers dissolving into shadows. Your fingertips graze the clay, warmth seeping through like echoes of forgotten summers. A king's ashes once paved winter roads, yours dust the sill like powdered moonlight. A coal cracks, its final whisper, a distant cousin to Silk Road bonfires. You cup residual heat, a fleeting embrace against the creeping chill. Old tailies warned of pots harboring curses. Yours nestles quiet, a humble ally in the dark. Ash flecks swirl, dancing like stars in a roofless sky. You trace the ladle's mended spine, resin and time fused into something stubbornly whole. Scholars quarrel over eternal flames, yours faded gentle as a lullaby. Silence settles where the chimney's breath once hummed. The pot rests against your chest, its curve imprinting drowsy warmth through worn fabric. Bakers once dozed by ovens, their dreams steeped in bread and hearth smoke. Hoarfrost etches silver lace across the floor. Your heel nudges the hearthstone, its stubborn heat a dwindling rebellion. Alchemists chased fireproof charms. You settle for toes curled toward fading memories. The wind's mournful tune tangles with your empty belly. Warmth retreats, each stolen degree a memory, unraveling. Ancient stews simmered for guards and doomed souls. Tonight's broth lives only in clay's afterglow. Your back straightens, joints creaking like weathered timber. Cold climbs your calves, a slow, insistent tide. Emperors chilled jewels in mountain snow, your palms cradle earthenware, trading grandeur for grit. Scritching paws patter near the grain, a thief composing its tiny ballad. You turn away, offering silent amnesty. Learned debates once raged over food's vital spark. This mouse answers with crumbs and trust. Heat surrenders, clay returning to its birth cold. Your hand stays pressed, numbness blurring the line between flesh and frost. Coffee masters red warmth through calluses. You measure it in stubborn hope. Moonbeams gild ash heaps, liquid silver pooling on stone. You sketch shapes in the dust, childhood games mingling with empire's ruins. Tea rituals, revered ashes, art yours spells sleep in smudged hieroglyphs. Jaw clattering, a metronome for the freezing dark. You stand knees, echoing ancient pines in January gales, shamans blessed snowmelt and cinders. Your chalice holds broth's ghost and yesterday's peels. The pot yawns empty, silent as an unanswered question. You haul it clattering toward dawn's chores, iron barking against stone. Bathhouses once repurposed ashes, yours await a humble reckonings. Shutters shudder, winds bitter, applause trailing your exit. You hover at the door, palm gripping cold metal. Brewmaster's debated ashes roll your answer, fogs the air in white puffs. Winter slaps your face, sharp and bracing. Behind the hearth sleeps its breath, now just a scallion-scented sigh. Ice splinters underfoot, moonlight fracturing into fleeting constellations. A wolf's cry weaves through distant pines. The pot waits, still as buried relics, for dawn's pale fingers to stir. Sleep comes soft now, carried on ash, and the quiet promise of embers unborn.